Chapter 1163. Yinglong could be built, but the energy source was a big problem. The heaven rune circle and ancient rune circle that covered every scale and every strand of dragon's beard could definitely provide a portion of the energy. However, it was impossible to rely on the energy absorbed by the heaven rune circle to move a puppet that was 108 kilometers long. Not to mention that it still needed to fight. However, Yu Liao had already thought of a solution long before he designed it. That was God's stone. God's stone had another name, endless energy. As long as there was light, it could be converted into energy. It would never dry up and could continuously provide for its need. In this world, there was no better core energy source for a puppet than God's stone. Yu Yang did not need God's stone and could also make Yinglong move. However, with God's stone, he could make Yinglong move and fight as he pleased. Once God's stone was combined with the heaven rune circle and ancient rune circle, it could absorb and convert all energy to provide Yinglong's needs. It even included all kinds of energy produced during battles. How do we get such a large amount of God's stone? Princess Sisai felt that although this was a good plan, it was difficult to implement. It was like the legendary skill of picking up girls. Anyone who learned this skill would be able to use it to make girls throw themselves into their arms, ensuring that they would love each other until the heavens fell and the earth split. This skill might seem invincible on the surface, but after thinking about it calmly, it depended on who learned it. If the person who learned it was a girl, even if he learned the skill, what use would it be? Therefore, no matter what, he had to consider the actual situation. God's stone was good. But if it didn't exist now, it would be useless. We have searched the God-extinguishing secret land these few days and found nothing, right? However, Yu Yang laughed out loud, causing everyone to be confused. All along, we have made the mistake of first impressions being the strongest. We thought that all the secrets were hidden in the God-extinguishing secret land, and we just needed to find out how. I suddenly realized this wrong idea last night. Actually, the secrets of the God-extinguishing secret land, at least on the outside, are not on the surface. The 8 God Masters are suspicious and competing with each other. Is it possible for them to reveal these secrets? That's obviously impossible. You're saying that the true secret is hidden outside of the divine destruction secret realm? When Princess Sisai heard this, she was so excited that she could not control herself. In order to maintain her rationality, she bit her index finger, using a trace of pain to control her emotions. Got it! Fallen Beauty was so smart that she immediately understood the key point. She jumped up happily and hugged Yu Yang. Oh, I understand now. Go. Princess Sisai was even more anxious than her. Princess Sisai, the Rouge Tigress, thought it through and immediately broke into a run. Red personally guided them out of the grimoire world. His body was as agile as a swallow, and he flew straight into the strange dark clouds that covered the sky. Then, Fallen Beauty, Yu Yu, and the others, who had reacted, all ran out. They formed groups of 2 and scattered in all directions, throwing themselves into the sea of dark clouds that seemed close but were actually far away. Yu Yang did not follow them. He only smiled, turned around and floated down to the God-extinguishing secret realm, and began the peak of Yinglong's creation. At night, when Yu Yang returned to the grimoire world, he was exhausted. Reflected in front of him was a sparkling mountain of God's stones that shone brilliantly. The number of God's stones was estimated to be hundreds of thousands of them. They were of different sizes and sizes. Among them, the smallest was no bigger than a grain of rice, the second was the size of an almond, the slightly bigger one was the size of a fist, the biggest one was the size of a ball. There were also God's stone crystals that were not very regular, comparable to a small mountain, stacked layer upon layer, and piled up to 1,000 meters high. Yu Yang was flabbergasted. Where did you guys go to rob? Princess Sisai waved her hand proudly. The 8 great heavenly masters are so generous, we couldn't reject them. In the end, it would be impolite to reject them. On the other side, Xia Yi, Lu Yi, Sky Disaster, Bao Er, Yu Bing and the other girls surrounded him excitedly, fighting to tell Yu Yang the good news. One of them said that she found a super factory in the Sea of Clouds where a certain heavenly master was manufacturing the suspended sky mothership. The other one said how to use the heaven runes to break the seal and move the god stones. All of them were talking at the same time, and no one was willing to give in to anyone. This made Yu Yang feel dizzy. Originally, he was already tired after manufacturing the peak-level war dolls for an entire day, but now, he was almost hypnotized on the spot and fell asleep. Everyone was very excited, and their words were very chaotic. But one thing was for sure, and that was that they had found their target, God stones, and obtained a huge harvest. Although the 8 great heavenly masters had also left a seal in the manufacturing factory, this place was already deserted. Moreover, no matter if the suspended sky mothership was completed or not, it was still a huge object, and no one could move it away. Moreover, before the 8 great heavenly masters fell out with each other, they were living in peace on the surface. Normally, they would not lower themselves to steal other people's things. Every suspended sky mothership represented the will and power of a certain heavenly master, and the other heavenly masters would definitely not give face to others. Therefore, other than the god stones, the things in the super manufacturing factory were not guarded. With impatience as the leader, once they found the target in the depths of the Sea of Clouds, they would work together to break the seal with Ji Zun's will and divine equipment. Then, they would desperately move the god stones into the grimoire world. Thus, they achieved the shocking result that Yu Yang saw. Precious god stones were piled up like a mountain. They had taken away all the god stones that the 8 great heavenly masters had painstakingly accumulated for 10,000 years. This was the result of Princess Sisai and the others' hard work in a day. No wonder they were so proud. If the 8 great heavenly masters came to the god-vanquishing secret realm and saw that their belongings were stolen, they would probably be furious. Yu Yu was a little worried that the 8 great heavenly masters would gang up on her third brother because they were too angry. It's impossible for them to know that it's us. Sky Disaster, this little girl, comforted him heartlessly. We've already made traces of shifting the blame to someone else. That's a blatant lie. Yu Yang slapped his forehead. It seemed like he had seriously underestimated this girl's mischievous heart. Anyway, we won't admit it. With Sky Disaster's personality, she was a little devil. No wonder His Majesty did not do anything when the demonic palace snatched her away. It seemed like His Majesty knew that this girl would not be able to achieve anything with ordinary education. Don't worry, after the Gods' War, it's still uncertain how many heavenly masters will survive. Princess Sisai and Yu were the best, so they naturally comforted her. It's just a few fake gods, what's there to be afraid of? Impatience looked very disdainful on the surface. Yes, come on, we want to challenge the fake gods. Beat them until their teeth fall all over the floor. Because the Sky Law Empress had set a bad example, many young ladies were very violent now. Luckily, they would not be like that to Yu Yang. Yu Yang did not correct them, but only looked at sickly beauty and smiled. It seemed like everything was ready, except for the search for the ancient relics. They did not know when this mysterious ancient relics would appear. Perhaps when it appeared, the mystery of the fall of the 2 great gods, Taiyan and Bingli, would also be solved. As Yu Yang combined his divine telekinesis with his domain to create the creation god pearl that was filled with chaotic energy, it quietly evolved. Because he was too focused, Yu Yang actually did not notice this at all. While he was in his dream, the heavenly sword goddess, who he had not seen for a long time, suddenly appeared and watched the sparring between Yu Yang and Koki no Koki. Although she did not say anything, her appearance was a great encouragement to Yu Yang, giving him endless motivation. His condition was 100 times better than usual. Even the 5th sword, Wang Lung Yuan, which was usually very difficult to release, was released smoothly. Yu Yang, who was immersed in training in the world of his consciousness, was still full of energy even when he woke up the next day. His mood was exceptionally good. When he stood on the god-vanquishing secret realm again, he intended to find the feeling he had in his dream again. With a thought, the fifth sword of the innate invisible sword Qi, Wang Lung Yuan, was shot out. It turned into a huge golden dragon, its entire body glowing. It raised its head and roared, as if it had a life of its own. It pointed towards the blue dome of heaven, and when it reached the 9 heavens, it swooped down. It circled around the light pillar of energy that shot out from the top of Yu Yang's head. Its majesty was boundless, suppressing all directions. Even the impatiens and the others, who were watching from afar, felt their hearts tremble. They could not help but have the illusion of prostrating themselves on the ground in worship. It was extremely close to Yu Yang, a friend and not an enemy. There was not a single trace of enmity. It was also very far away. It was still an inviolable divine might. Everyone really did not dare to imagine. If an enemy were to face it directly, what kind of psychological impact would they receive? The golden dragon drilled into Yu Yang's body and turned into 9 small dragons. They drilled out from all parts of his body and gathered in Yu Yang's holy grimoire. Borrowing the holy grimoire's brilliance, they once again became one. They soared into the sky and roared towards the sky. Roar. This kind of dragon's roar was unique in the mortal world. It carried a supreme dragon's might. Like a shockwave after an explosion, it swept through the god-destroying secret realm around Yu Yang. It was said that only divine power could destroy the god-destroying secret gold. Under the roar of the golden dragon, they all fell apart. Some even melted like ice and snow into smoke. Under Yu Yang's will, a large number of them were transformed and reshaped into brand new forms. Usually, Yu Yang could only change a range of 100 meters with a thought. But now, within a range of 10,000 meters, everything was reborn under the divine might of the golden dragon. Princess Sisai and the others were shocked for a long time. Could this be the power of Yu Yang's sword? Was this the true power of the fifth sword, Wang Lung Yuan? Success! Yu Yang himself did not dare to believe it. He raised his hands and looked at it. Wang Lung Yuan's sword was really successfully executed. Before yesterday, this was unimaginably difficult. Moreover, even if it was successfully executed in the will space, it did not mean that it could be successfully executed in the real world. Then, he looked around. There were nearly 100 shining dragon scales floating high and low. Usually, it would only take a thought. At most, it could only create 1 dragon scale awning long. Now, with 1 sword, it had successfully created 100. Yu Yang was so happy that he wanted to laugh out loud. However, he found that he could not even move a finger. His whole body unconsciously fell down and fell on a giant dragon scale floating under his feet. Xiao San. Yu was almost scared to death. The Angel of Dawn instantly merged, and the angel battle blades spread out like wings. She was the first to rush over and help Yu Yang up. She hugged him in her arms and kept calling out to him, deeply afraid that something bad would happen to him. Yu Yang wanted to open his mouth to comfort her, but found that he did not even have the strength to speak. His whole body was in a serious state of weakness. Even smiling at her was very difficult. He's fine. It's just that the power of the sword was too strong. He could not control it freely and forcefully executed it, so he's a little exhausted. Impatience was also quite frightened. However, when she rushed over to check, she found that this brat was just overexerted and was not injured at all. Only then did she calm down. You idiot! Tigress raised her fist and was about to hit him, but looking at Yu Yu's concerned face, she put her hand down again, temporarily letting him go. This dragon-shaped sword Qi is really terrifying. I think even a fake god would not be able to withstand it. There are so many dragon scales, why don't we take the opportunity to jump on them? The simple-minded girls were counting Sky Disaster and Bao Air. At first, they were a little worried. However, seeing that Yu Yang was fine, and seeing that there were shining dragon scales around them, they actually started to play the game excitedly. Hey, can you guys stop for a while? Yu Yang was very angry. It was a pity that he did not even have the strength to scold them. Otherwise, he would definitely grab these two girls and spank their little butts. Chapter 1164. The fifth sword, Wang Lung Yuan, was completed. Yu Yang was very happy. The first time he used Wang Lung Yuan, it was not as powerful as it was now, and he could not control it. It was only released unintentionally. But even that was enough to help Princess Sisai swallow the Prison Emperor Divine Sword that was hard to transform, and evolve it into the Prison Tiger Divine Sword. Now, with the silent encouragement from the Heavenly Sword Goddess, Yu Yang was able to truly release the Yellow Dragon Abyss. Of course, the Yellow Dragon Abyss Sword once again gave him a pleasant surprise. With a single slash, it swallowed the 10,000-meter god, extinguishing Secret Realm, and gave birth to 100 Ing Long's dragon scales. After mastering this sword, Yu Yang was confident in challenging the fake gods and killing the cunning Ji Wuri. He was even more confident. After resting in the grimoire world and waking up again, Yu Yang realized that his realm, which had been stagnant for a period of time, was faintly showing signs of breaking through again. As long as there was another opportunity, or perhaps a big battle, he might be able to break through to a whole new realm. Yu Yang's breakthroughs were undoubtedly very fast, especially in the early stages. He progressed at a tremendous pace, but as his skills and realms increased, the distance between each level was very far. Furthermore, every higher level was harder to break through than the lower level. Yu Yang's cultivation speed did not slow down, but the higher the level, the slower his breakthroughs became. This was certain. Now that the fifth sword, Wang Lung Yuan, was completed, and there were good signs of a breakthrough, how could Yu Yang not feel refreshed and happy? Half a month later, when Yu Yang and Princess Sisai had prepared everything, they officially left the God-extinguishing Secret Realm. They rushed to the East God Nations, the Eye Fortress, and met up with Marshal Feng Air, Marshal Griffin, General Golden Eagle, Space Pirates Winged Tiger, Wind Eagle, Flamingo, and the others. Yu Yang was not willing to miss the God battle in the Outer Mountain, whether it was an opportunity to break through or not. Frozen Earth City. Yu Yang hurried from the God-vanquishing Secret Realm to the East God Nation. Along the way, he passed by the border between the Northeast God Nation and the East God Nation. He discovered that there were many mercenary martial artists gathered in this small city. Most of the martial artists formed groups, carrying bags and weapons. They marched majestically from the Northeast God Nation to the East God Nation's Frozen Earth City. Could it be that the Northeastern God Master has decided to join the Eastern camp? Yu Yang had originally planned to fly away. After some thought, he decided to go down and take a look. Find out more about the current situation. He pretended to be a martial artist traveling from the Northeast God Nation to the East God Nation. First, he slowly overtook a group of martial artists who were obviously soldiers but had changed into ordinary mercenary clothes. Then, he randomly found a small group of at least 5 people and asked about the situation. The guy from another world, who had deceived people without paying with his life, took out his Oscar-worthy acting skills and pretended to be a rookie soldier who had fallen behind. "Brothers, please wait a moment." Without waiting for him to explain the situation, a strong man in the small group of 5 laughed out loud. "Look, another deserter." Yu Yang pretended to be ashamed, but he refused to admit defeat. He wiped his sweat. "I'm not a deserter, I just fell behind." "Fell behind? What a good excuse. Ha ha ha, this is also the excuse I've heard the most these days." Another dark-skinned middle-aged man in the group of 5 laughed. You can't blame them. The War of Gods is indeed not something rookies like them can handle. It's already good enough that they didn't pee their pants or hide in their mother's arms. Among the group of 5, there was a tall man who looked like the leader. He waved at Yu Yang and signaled him to come over. He reached out and patted Yu Yang's shoulder to show encouragement. He then smiled at his companions. Although this kid is a young master soldier, he's not a coward. At least he has traveled thousands of miles to Frozen Earth City. Ordinary deserters can't do this. But he even lost his bag. I think he was so scared during the ambush that he lost his bag and weapon. Hey, kid, don't you know that on the battlefield, your weapon is your life? That strong man stared at Yu Yang fiercely. There are plenty of weapons on the battlefield. I'll just pick one up when the time comes. Yu Yang expressed that he didn't care. Then how do you solve the problem of eating and drinking? The dark man turned around and asked. The East God Nation will provide. Yu Yang spread his hands. Not a bad idea. There was a short but strong man in the group of 5. He smiled and nodded. But I think that on the battlefield, it's better to have a bag that belongs to you. We are just reinforcements in name. You can't expect the East God Nation's army to take care of you like a nanny. My young master, you have to learn one thing, and that is to take care of yourself. When we reach Frozen Earth City before we assemble, let's prepare for him. The tall and strong captain had a sudden idea and decided to take care of Yu Yang. A little soldier with a pretty face like him would probably be killed within a minute on the battlefield. The last of the group of 5, the young man with extraordinary looks, snorted in disdain. Haha, you're jealous. The dark man pointed it out bluntly, saying that his companion was jealous of Yu Yang. Indeed, if this young man with extraordinary looks were to stand among ordinary people, he would stand out like a crane among a flock of chickens. But if he were to stand together with Yu Yang, who was so handsome that he could suffocate women, he was destined to be a tragedy. He would pale in comparison. After laughing for a while, everyone followed the group and continued on their way. Yu Yang had successfully fought his way into the group. He had obtained information. It turned out that the Northeast God Lord had not been persuaded by either the East or West camp. The Northeast God Lord, Qin Yun, had announced his neutrality and would not participate in the battles of either camp. However, although the Northeast God Lord, Qin Yun, had announced his neutrality, the generals and soldiers under him could freely follow their own wishes. They could join either the East or West camps as mercenaries or free warriors, and participate in the battles. Apart from a small number of Northeast God Lord soldiers, who were encouraged by their friends and relatives to join the West camp. Most of the Northeast God Lord soldiers and generals still leaned towards the East camp. Apart from those who had to stay behind. About 60% of the Northeast God Lord soldiers had spontaneously packed their bags and prepared their own weapons and equipment. They rushed to the East God Lord in groups, prepared to assist the East God Lord in the war against the West God Lord under the guise of wandering mercenaries. Because along the way there were sneak attacks from the West camp. Many young soldiers who lacked battlefield experience unfortunately lost their lives, or became shameful deserters out of fear. Only the most determined and experienced veterans could successfully walk from the Northeast God Lord all the way to the East God Lord's border city, Frozen Earth City. Soldiers like Yu Yang who were empty-handed were mostly considered deserters. At the very least, they were defeated soldiers who had separated from the group. Follow closely, we are about to reach Frozen Earth City. The real battle is about to officially begin. Bring out your fighting spirit. We are men from the Northeast God Lord, don't embarrass me. Whoever dares to be weak in battle, like a coward, don't even need the enemy to kill him. I will personally destroy him. Also, remember, we are not an army, we do not represent the Northeast God Lord. We are free wandering mercenaries. No matter what we do, it has nothing to do with the great Qin Yun God. We are not acting according to his will. We are acting on our own accord, acting bravely for a just cause. Do you understand? A general with the strength of an oracle flew across the sky. He shouted loudly, reminding the Northeast God Lord's soldiers to be vigilant. At the same time, He patrolled and protected these veterans who had arrived with great difficulty, not letting the West Camp's secret assassin group succeed. Yes, Lord Heavy Rhinoceros. The soldiers who knew this general all responded loudly. Although it was not in name, it was more or less the same as officially sending troops to war. The only difference was, whether these soldiers won or lost, whether they could obtain glory after the war had nothing to do with the Northeast God Lord who had declared their neutrality. Just as they were about to enter Frozen Earth City, there were dozens of meteors in the sky, drawing long fiery tails as they bombarded down. More than a dozen meteors were intercepted by Heavy Rhinoceros and a few unknown generals and exploded. But even more meteors successfully broke through the defense line and hit the ground, blowing up the Northeast God Lord's soldiers who could not dodge in time within the range. Not far in front of Yu Yang, he was hit by a meteor. The shock wave directly blew the soldiers away. If it was not for Yu Yang secretly helping the five-man squad, it was estimated that at least 2 of them would have died in this wave of meteor attacks. Although the guy from another world couldn't keep an eye on them, since they were right in front of him, he couldn't just sit back and watch. He secretly turned the meteor fragments that filled the sky into dust, allowing the dark-skinned man and the muscular man to luckily escape from the disaster. Enemy attack! The general named Heavy Rhinoceros roared thunderously, ordering the soldiers not to panic, to focus on gathering, and to use the strength of the team to resist the enemy. All of you, go to hell! And the enemies of the West Camp appeared, also with a few generals, and attacked first. Then they led the soldiers of the West Camp, who were still lying in ambush in the distance, over here. Yu Yang discovered that although the soldiers of the West Camp were not elite, they were not the kind of trash army that had no combat power. And in terms of numbers, they had a significant advantage over the defending troops of the East God Lord and the reinforcements of the Northeast God Lord. The West Camp army that covered the mountains and plains surged over here like ants. Heavy Rhinoceros and the others immediately retaliated. They lifted a small mountain of rocks and threw them over. They caused a large number of casualties and frightened the enemy formation. This caused them to cheer loudly, and restored a lot of morale. Generals against generals, soldiers against soldiers. Before the free reinforcements of the Northeast God Lord had time to enter Frozen Earth City, which was protected by the city walls, the soldiers of the West Camp surrounded them tightly, cutting off the defending troops of Frozen Earth City and the free reinforcements in two, attacking from the front and the back. In the sky, Heavy Rhinoceros and the other generals were also intercepted by the generals of the West Camp, and a fierce battle broke out. The interception plan of the West Camp was originally very successful. If not for the unexpected Yu Yang, they would have been able to completely wipe out the free reinforcements of the Northeast God Lord and then take down Frozen Earth City in one fell swoop. However, with the addition of Yu Yang, this variable, they fought very sullenly. They kept making inexplicable mistakes. A few of the Western Camp's generals, who were originally even stronger than the Eastern Camp's generals, actually lost to Heavy Rhino and the others as they fought. Other than one who managed to escape, the others either died in battle unimaginably or were heavily injured and captured. The strangeness of this battle made even Heavy Rhinoceros and the others feel incredulous. Of course, no one knew the real reason for all these incredible events. It was because of Yu Yang, who hid among the ordinary soldiers and watched. Luck and victory. He had been accompanying this free reinforcements that were not very strong. 5 days later, the Heavy Rhinoceros army, who had won 10 battles in a row, finally kicked an iron plate. Because of their outstanding performance on the battlefield, they were targeted by a master god in the West Camp. Chapter 1165. Everyone knew that there were 8 gods in Outer Mountain. Every one of them was an honorable existence. They could destroy heaven and earth with just a wave of their hand. Normally, none of the god masters with limitless power would even look at ordinary soldiers in the eye. This was because ordinary soldiers were like ants to them. No matter how many of them there were, it was meaningless. As divine masters, even glancing at ordinary soldiers would be a waste of their precious time. However, today, a god had his eyes on this heavy rhinoceros army that had won consecutive battles. He was the southwest god Sha Feng, who was said to be ranked in the top 5 among the 8 gods in Outer Mountain. His strength was only below Deicide and Black Day. Why did the heavy rhinoceros army provoke the southwest god Sha Feng? The reason had to be explained 2 days ago. At that time, the heavy rhinoceros army, whose morale had soared after consecutive victories, charged forward and encountered the western camp soldiers that were airdropped in the Flying Stone Valley. A life-and-death battle ensued. This heavy rhinoceros army's hatred was too high. Moreover, the western camp soldiers that they attacked were the direct subordinates of the southwest god Sandstorm General. The Sandstorm General was one of the southwest god Sha Feng's 19 illegitimate children. He was quite powerful. When he learned that the airdropped army under his command was surrounded by the heavy rhinoceros army, he immediately brought his elites and came to their rescue. He intended to annihilate the enemy's so-called invincible heavy rhinoceros army in one fell swoop. With this fellow's arrival, it was impossible for Yu Yang to continue being a bystander even if he wanted to. He could only kill the Sandstorm warrior that was about to show off its might before the heavy rhinoceros army came into contact with the Sandstorm warrior. Then, he accidentally spread the news of the enemy's elite attack, alerting the heavy rhinoceros army and making preparations. The pitiful Sandstorm General, whose strength was far above the heavy rhinoceros army, was instantly killed by Yu Yang before he could even make a move. It could be said to be the Outer Mountain version of dying before achieving victory. As for the elites under his command, their morale plummeted due to the death of their leader. Although they wanted to take revenge, they were no match for the red-eyed heavy rhinoceros army. Moreover, there was also Yu Yang who often attacked from the shadows. In the end, they could only swallow the bitter fruit of failure. They were not able to save the Sandstorm General and were instead completely annihilated. If it was just 1 or 2 armies being annihilated, it would not be enough to alarm a southwest god like Sha Feng. However, the Sandstorm General that Yu Yang killed before he could even make a move was the illegitimate child of Sha Feng God. Even if Sha Feng had quite a few illegitimate children and didn't care much about them, they were still sons. Yu Yang's actions were a merciless slap to the high and mighty divine Lord Sha Feng's face. If Yu Yang had known that the Sandstorm Warrior was Sha Feng's son, he definitely wouldn't have killed him in one hit. At most, he would have beaten him to a pulp. There was no point in provoking the aggro of a god lord right now. Yu Yang had wanted to wait for the 8 divine masters to start fighting each other. He wanted to wait until they were all heavily injured before he jumped out and picked them up. It was a little too early to fight the divine masters now, and it was not part of his plan. The problem was that plans could not keep up with changes. The appearance of the Sandstorm General was an accident. Being insta-killed was even more unexpected. However, Yu Yang had no other choice. After all, no matter how powerful he was, he did not have the ability to load. The Sandstorm General had been dead for more than 2 days, and Yu Yang had no idea that he was Sha Feng's son. He had no time to change his plan. By the time he sensed the Southwest Divine Master, Sha Feng, appearing in the sky, it was already too late. The sky was filled with divine light, making the already dark sky incomparably bright. The existence in the middle that was as strong as the blazing sun was the Southwest God Nation's Master God, the mountain beyond mountains' big boss, Sha Feng. When Sha Feng appeared, his godly aura overwhelmed everyone. Even the heavy Rhinoceros Legion, who had won 10 battles and had high morale, instantly lost all will to resist. Even the strong-willed heavy Rhinoceros Legion sighed and waited for death, let alone the normal soldiers. Even if he had the will to fight, he could not summon the will to fight against a divine master. Moreover, even if he resisted, it would be meaningless. There would never be a general in the outer mountain who could fight against the divine master. The difference in strength between them was too great. Compared to a divine master, a general with the strength of a god's envoy was probably not even 1/10,000th of a divine master. They were like ants. How could they defeat a mammoth? As long as you take one move, this divine master will forgive you. The southwest god, Sha Feng, did not explain the reason for his arrival. Forget about Yu Yang, even the heavy rhinoceros legion, who was familiar with Mountain Beyond Mountain's intelligence, did not know the truth. He couldn't blame anyone for this. If he had to blame someone, he could only blame the sandstorm warrior for dying too quickly. If Yu Yang had shouted, "Report your name," this situation wouldn't have happened. Moreover, after the sandstorm warlord died, the Southwest Divine Master, Sha Feng, would not have learned that the sandstorm warlord had been killed so quickly, and he would not have come to seek revenge out of anger if he hadn't done it on a whim. All of this was a coincidence. Heaven's will. It was not what Yu Yang had imagined. It was not something that could be controlled by humans. Yu Yang was considering if he should play dead and avoid the battle, or sneak back into the grimoire world and wait for Sha Feng to leave before coming out again. Fighting Sha Feng now was definitely not the best outcome. Not only would it attract the attention of the other 7 divine masters, it would also alert the enemy and scare Ji Wuri away. If Ji Wuri knew that he had also come to Mountain Beyond Mountain, with his cautiousness, would he show himself so easily? This way, it would be difficult to kill him. Just as he was hesitating, another ray of divine light shone in the sky, illuminating half the sky. Like a dragon or a flame, the divine light streaked across the sky from the distant horizon. In an instant, it arrived before the southwestern divine lord Sha Feng. Akaji! The southwest god, Sha Feng, snorted coldly. Mind your own business. As a divine master, do you really want to interfere? Do you think that I don't even have the right to punish these ants? Opposing Sha Feng was an uninvited guest whose body was constantly burning with a strange divine flame. At the same time, he emitted a dazzling radiance. He was the staunch supporter of the Eastern Camp's god-slaying Chi-Chio, the divine master of the southeast divine kingdom of the Outer Mountains. This Akaji was also Yu Yang's acquaintance, the Griffin Marshal, the Golden Eagle General and Old Spear's master. At the same time, he was also the southwest god, Sha Feng's archenemy. Although the 8 great gods had a peace agreement, Akaji and Sha Feng had a long-standing grudge. It had not been resolved in 10,000 years. Instead, it had deepened. In response to Sha Feng's questioning, Akaji laughed loudly, his voice shaking the heavens and earth. Nice words, this is exactly what you are good at. If you want to punish someone, you can always find a pretext. Sha Feng, as a high and mighty divine master, you actually laid your hands on a bunch of weak soldiers. Haha, even if you don't feel ashamed, I feel ashamed for you. I only know that as a divine master, my divine dignity is not to be challenged. If anyone dares to touch my bottom line, they will have to bear my thunderous anger. The southwest god, Sha Feng, pointed his finger angrily at Akaji and snorted. Even you, Akaji, are no exception. Let me ask you one last time, Akaji. Do you really want to be a shield for the Northeast God Kingdom soldiers? I really didn't know that you have such a good relationship with the Northeast's Qin Yun. It seems that Qin Yun's declaration of neutrality is not because he truly loves peace, but a trick, right? Unlike that coward Qin Yun, I, Akaji, have never been afraid of fighting. Akaji replied proudly. Not to mention you, Sha Feng, even Black Day can't make me take half a step back. All right, let's fight earlier, let's bring it forward to now. Sha Feng's voice was gloomy and terrifying, his eyes emitting endless killing intent. Let's fight, who's afraid of who? Akaji was not afraid at all. The 2 big bosses were about to fight, and the heavy rhinoceros hurriedly ran away with his subordinate. As the saying goes, when the city gates catch fire, the fish in the moat suffer. A war between two divine masters was not a joke. Once they started fighting, it was estimated that everything within 1,000 miles would be smashed into pieces. If they didn't run now, when would they? Other than Yu Yang, who was quietly hiding and peeping, all the soldiers ran away, regretting that their parents had given them 2 less legs. With regards to the retreat of the heavy rhinoceros army on the ground, the Southwest Divine Master Sha Feng was not very concerned. First, if he wanted to destroy this army, he could do it anytime and anywhere. He didn't care if they escaped to the ends of the earth, the result would be the same. Second, now the main target to deal with was Chi Chiu, who was also a divine lord, so he couldn't be distracted. Sha Feng and Akaji began to confront each other, looking for the other party's weakness. No one wanted to lose. 10,000 years of secret war had made them understand each other, and they knew each other very well. If 2 divine masters with similar strength were to fight, they had to find the other party's major weakness if they wanted to determine the winner. Otherwise, a draw would be certain. There seems to be something interesting happening here. Is it a fight? I like it the most. A voice came from nowhere. When Yu Yang heard it, he realized that there was another divine master in the field. Even with Yu Yang's heaven eyes divine vision, he could not capture the appearance of this divine master. Furthermore, even with his inherent skill of disguise, he seemed to be in danger of being seen through. The divine master who came uninvited was different from Sha Feng and Akaji. He was not completely unaware of the existence of Yu Yang. His gaze was filled with doubt as he searched the ground, passing by Yu Yang's hiding place 3 times. Fortunately, in the end, he was still deceived by Yu Yang, who had raised his creation domain. This fellow is even more powerful than Sha Feng and Akaji. Yu Yang wiped off his cold sweat. He did not dare to look up easily, in case he was discovered by this divine master who came uninvited. It's you, Zhaoxi. The Southeast Divine Master Akaji's expression changed slightly. You want to join forces with Sha Feng to besiege me? The proud North God Lord Zhaoxi. You're not qualified. Compared to Akaji, Sha Feng was more delighted. After all, the North God Lord Zhaoxi, who had just arrived, was a great help to the Western camp. His strength was only inferior to Black Day. If the Northern God Lord, Zhaoxi, did not come to restrain the Southern God Lord, Tian Chou, who was a staunch supporter of the God-slaying alliance, it would not be easy for the Western camp to suppress the Eastern camp. Speaking of besiege, Akaji, please allow me, Frost Cold, to correct a small mistake in your words. 2 people can only be considered a joint attack. Only 3 people or more can be considered a besiege, just like what we are doing now. Snowflakes floated down from the sky, and the ground froze. White frost froze the ground. The area within 10 kilometers instantly turned into a world of ice and snow. Some of the injured heavy rhinoceros soldiers who did not manage to escape 10 kilometers in time were left behind. A gust of cold wind blew past, and they were all frozen into ice sculptures. Only the heavy rhinoceros general, who was in charge of escorting them, was lucky enough to escape. However, his limbs were already frozen stiff, his face was purple, and his body was trembling non-stop. If not for his 2 companions risking their lives to turn around and rescue him, he might have frozen to death. If it was just Sha Feng, a single divine master, Akaji did not care about him, even if he was an old enemy. He waited for the North God Zhaoxi to appear. Akaji was fighting 1 against 2 and was at a disadvantage. He had a bad feeling about this. When the 3rd Divine Master, the Northwest God Frost Cold, appeared, Akaji's expression changed drastically. At this moment, he also had thoughts of retreating. 1 against 3? Akaji was not that arrogant, and his strength did not allow him to act recklessly. Just the North God Lord Zhaoxi alone was hard enough to deal with, not to mention there were still 2 others who were not inferior to him, Sha Feng and Frost Cold. The most terrifying thing was that this seemed to be a trap. The enemy intended to attack him by surrounding him with 3 people. On the other hand, Yu Yang was very happy to see this. He immediately sat on a rock, and took out some snacks to eat while watching the god battle that was about to erupt. 3 against 1? Don't be afraid, quickly use your ultimate move, Heavenly Treasure Wheel Dance. It was a pity that Yu Yang had forgotten that Akaji was not the gold Saint Shajia. He did not know the Heavenly Treasure Wheel Dance that was invincible in group attacks and defense. Chapter 1166. Even if it was 1 against 3, as an expert, Akaji did not lose heart and despair even though he was in a difficult situation. He was the proud Southeast Divine Master. Until the Southwest Divine Master, Sha Feng, took out a small object. When this small object was taken out, Akaji's whole body trembled slightly. Obviously, he was extremely afraid of this small object. Yu Yang's heart was also greatly shaken. This was because he discovered that he had found the thing that he had been searching for so long without a trace. It was also the ultimate goal that the mysterious existence in the Silver Grimoire had assigned to Yu Yang. The true body of the ancient artifact. This small object was about the size of a finger and was diamond-shaped. There were dozens of small fragments inlaid on the side, forming a small necklace. Not to mention its body, even the smallest of the dozens of inlaid fragments contained divine power that was not inferior to the power that Akaji, Sha Feng, Frost Cold and Zhao Shi had displayed. The core in the middle was definitely forged by the will of the ancient great god. It was already a peerless divine weapon, possessing a supreme divine power that shocked even Yu Yang. Anyone, as long as they could use 1%, 1,000th, or even 1/10,000th of it. Then they could easily ascend to become a god. However, the main body of this diamond-shaped ancient artifact already had its own divinity. It had its own godhood. No one could control it and become its master. When it was respectfully invited by Sha Feng, it floated in midair. In an instant it displayed its divine power. Its divine power soared into the sky. Within a radius of 100 miles, with it as the absolute center, a unique temporary divine territory was formed. In this temporary god territory, Yu Yang was surprised to find that everything in the world had automatically changed into the state of the god-vanquishing secret realm. Although it was not the real god-vanquishing secret realm, the soil and sand here had already become similar to the god-vanquishing secret gold. Indestructible. Yu Yang reached out his hand and grabbed the ground. He discovered that they were still the same. Sand was sand and rocks were rock. There was no qualitative change. However, in this temporary god domain, the will of the divine artifact had made them incomparably hard. It was different from their usual state. Not only that, in this temporary god domain, the strength of everyone present had decreased by 100 times. It was similar to the space in the God Destruction secret realm that was restricted by the will of the ancient great god and the ancient laws. Divine destruction? How did you get this thing? Could it be that Taiyin and Bingley did not succeed in sealing it back then? Did you get it out? Crazy, all of you are crazy! Akaji roared hysterically. The veins on his forehead were exposed, and he had completely lost his composure. We're not crazy. You're the crazy one. Sha Feng laughed. In order to seal the god vanquishing, Taiyin and Bingley both died. It's not enough that you killed them, you still want to use it to harm me? Akaji was furious. As long as you don't die, that lunatic deicide will not fall. As long as that stubborn lunatic deicide is in the mountain beyond mountain, our god creation plan will have to be delayed for another day. Do you know how precious our time is? For 10,000 years, our efforts have been in vain. We've had enough of you and deicide. So, all of you must die. If you had agreed to our plan back then, how many gods could we have created in these 10,000 years? It's you, you've been causing trouble for us at the expense of others. Sha Feng finally revealed his true goal, which was to take down the enemy deicide. As for Akaji, it was because he supported deicide and was in the eastern camp. Akaji was stunned for a long time. Suddenly, he lost his composure and laughed hysterically for a long time. Sha Feng and the other two stared coldly at Akaji. Their gazes were as if they were looking at a dead man. Yu Yang, who was secretly hiding below, didn't dare to make a sound even though he was listening with great interest. He was afraid that the enemy would notice and affect the big picture. After a long time, Akaji stopped laughing. It was as if he had been cut by a knife. God creation? So you've been plotting that laughable plan all along. I, Akaji, may not be a smart person, but I also know that this kind of heaven-defying action will never succeed. Creating a god, ha ha, what a preposterous and ridiculous idea. Cultivation and growth is a kind of accumulation, a kind of continuous self-transcendence. It needs to be done step by step and with self-awareness. It is done step by step. No shortcuts will work. What's more, it's a heaven-defying and laughable action of using external forces to God creation. Let's not talk about turning a human into a god. Even if it's a treasure, you can't use external forces to forcefully increase its quality. Do you have the ability to create a divine equipment for me to see? Is it possible? Impossible. Why is it that you, who have never succeeded in 10,000 years, are still so stubborn? We have long mastered the taboo power. We just lack time to perfect it. Sha Feng was unmoved. It was as if whatever Akaji said was nonsense. Taboo power, haha. It's a terrifying method that can never turn a human into a god. Instead, it will only make one neither human nor ghost. Just based on this laughable experiment, you believe in the god creation plan? Too naive. It's simply a delusion. Akaji raised his lips and mocked. Enough. If we can't create a god, how did you and I become gods? Akaji, have you forgotten? Sha Feng couldn't help but shout. You said that we have ascended to become gods. Have we really ascended to become gods? Poor Sha Feng. You've already been blinded by power and confidence. Not to mention you and me, even Black Day and Deicide can't be called gods. Moreover, even Deicide has never admitted that he's a true god. Could it be that you're so complacent that you can't even recognize who you are after a few words of flattery from your subordinates? It's precisely because we've taken a shortcut on the path of cultivation. We've gone in the wrong direction. One wrong thought has ruined our entire future. Only people like Taiyin and Bingley can be called gods. What capabilities do you, Sha Feng, have to be compared to Taiyin and Bingley? Even I feel ashamed for you. Sha Feng, you've already fallen. Your inflated vanity and power have made you lose yourself. It's no wonder that for the sake of power, you've even brought out such a terrifying god equipment like the God Destroyer. Akaji had gradually calmed down. He probably knew that he couldn't escape today, and had come to a realization. Therefore, he didn't lose his composure like he did when he first saw the God Destroyer. Am I going in the wrong direction? That's what you think. I've never thought so. Sha Feng didn't agree with Akaji's words. Idiot! Yu Yang cursed in his heart. However, he suppressed his emotions and continued to eavesdrop. What a Southwest god! If you think that this self-proclaimed godmaster is really a godmaster, then I have nothing to say. Akaji decided not to talk to Sha Feng anymore because this guy was completely hopeless. Akaji, considering that we used to be companions, you can change your mind. North God Lord Zhao, she decided to give Akaji one last chance. I change my mind and carry out that ridiculous god-making plan with you? Zhao Shi, I'm sorry. I can't do it. Akaji waved his hand forcefully as if he had made up his mind. Maybe you don't agree with me, but this is how I, Akaji, am. I can't treat something that's obviously wrong as right. Even if I die, you can forget about changing my mind. I'm Akagi, a unique and indomitable man. I'm not a coward who will bow to power and evil forces. You have your own ideals. I won't force you. North God Lord Zhao, she seemed to know what kind of person Akagi was. He didn't try to persuade him. Zhao Shi, I don't understand. You're obviously a smart person. Why are you doing such an idiotic thing with them? What kind of plan to create a god? Even a 3-year-old child will not believe it. Do you really think that a god can be created? Chi Chiu looked at Zhao Shi's eyes, full of disappointment. Life is long. It's hard to pass the time if you don't do something. North God Lord Zhao, she smiled faintly. Well, we all have different ideals. There's no need to say more. Today, let me, Akagi, experience the ultimate skills of the 3 gods, Zhao Shi, Sha Feng, and Frost Cold. Akagi roared. His morale soared and he decided to fight to the death. He knew that this battle might be his last. He didn't care about anything else. He was determined to fight to the death. In the end, he would drag someone down with him. The Northwest god Frost Cold, who had been silent all this while, sneered. You want to be tortured? Such a simple request. We'll be kind enough to satisfy you. Akagi wanted to charge forward and be the first to attack the Northwest god. However, the moment he was about to move, Akagi was shocked to find that his left ankle had been wrapped by a crystal-clear ice chain. This was one of the unique skills of the Northwest god Frost Cold, freezing chain. Before he could raise his hand to destroy it with his divine power, Akagi had already been pulled by Frost Cold's ice chain. Come down. I've already quietly put down the ice chain when you were talking. Otherwise, who would be interested in listening to your nonsense? Frost Cold had a good command of the freezing chain. With a thought, even someone as strong as Akagi could not resist, and was pulled down from the sky. At this time, Akagi was extremely angry. But he didn't lose his mind and was not in a hurry to break free. Instead, with the pulling force of the ice chain, he swooped down like a meteor and hit Frost Cold, who appeared like lightning below. His fist burst into a ball of flame, like a dragon turning over, and fiercely punched toward Frost Cold's face. However, the heavy punch of Akagi, who was angry, made Frost Cold relax his arm and raise his hand to catch it gently. The dragon flame gushed out and burned Frost Cold's palm. Half a second later, the flame that could melt gold and stone condensed into ice, and even Akagi's hand became an ice arm. Frost Cold sneered. When Akagi's second punch came down, he swung his hand. He threw Akagi far away. Akagi stopped the huge force in midair, but his feet were pulled by the opposite force of the ice chain, and he fell sideways to the ground. Akagi, who hurriedly supported himself with one hand on the ground, narrowed his eyes. He did not know when, but a foot appeared in front of him and kicked heavily toward his face. This was Sha Feng, who seized the perfect opportunity. Akagi hurriedly rolled and avoided this heavy kick. At the same time, he hit the ground with his arm and bounced up. He was ready to adjust his passive posture and position, and struggle against the ice chain to fight again. But time did not allow him to do so. A black shadow flashed in the sky. The afterimage was especially in Akagi's eyes. The real body had already hit Akagi's lower abdomen with an elbow. The heavy blow made Akagi feel so much pain that he wanted to die, and he almost vomited blood on the spot. Akagi, who reacted extremely quickly, did a roundhouse hook kick and swept away the shadow that hit his abdomen with the heavy elbow. It was actually Sha Feng who was chasing after him. Sha Feng blocked the hook kick with his arm, and was not injured at all. He was only temporarily pushed back. Akagi, on the other hand, was hit by the heavy elbow and smashed into the ground like a meteorite. With a loud bang, he smashed into the ground and sank deep into the rocks. If it was not for the temporary god territory created by this ancient relic, god destruction, with supreme god power and supreme will, Akagi would not have been injured at all. It was impossible for ordinary rocks to injure Akagi's body. But now, in the temporary god territory, the hardness of the rocks was similar to the god destruction's secret gold. Akagi hit the ground with both hands and jumped backwards. After dodging Zhao Shi's leisurely palm pressure, he would rather let Sha Feng hit him 10 times than let Zhao Shi press down with a solid palm. On the other side, Frost Cold sneered, and used his will to pull the ice chain again. Akagi's body lost control and moved forward, crashing into Frost Cold's fatal freezing finger gun. If this finger gun hit, Akagi's forehead would definitely be cracked open. Get lost! Akagi quickly tilted his head and dodged the freezing finger gun. Ignoring the scratches on his face, he slammed his head into Frost Cold's nose. Frost Cold, who was hit, covered his face and retreated, but did not forget to pull the ice chain and throw Akagi into the air. In the sky, Sha Feng's fists were like drums, hitting Akagi's back. Akagi flipped upside down and kicked Sha Feng 100 meters away, but before he could retract his body, he found Zhao Shi floating in the air. The palm seemed to pass through thousands of years of time. Although he could sense it, Akagi had no way to avoid it. It was as if he was destined to be hit thousands of years ago. That palm accurately and silently hit Akagi's chest. Yu Yang, who was watching the battle, was stunned. He only now realized how terrifying Zhao Shi, the Northern God Lord, was. Whether it was the power or the timing, it made people's hearts turn cold. Strong enemy, this Zhao Shi's strength was 10 times stronger than expected. Rumble, 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 rumble. Akagi, who was sent flying, flew 1,000 meters away and smashed into the ground. He smashed through 3 boulders and created a huge pit that was several hundred meters long. This was the result of him deliberately changing his flight path in order to protect himself. If he did not do anything and directly took the palm, he would probably have to go 300 meters underground to find him. If that was the case, it would be equivalent to falling into Sha Feng's trap and falling into the most disadvantageous situation. Every one of the 8 divine masters knew that Sha Feng was most proficient in dealing with enemies that were trapped underground. Sha Feng's ultimate technique had a natural advantage underground. Whoosh! Akagi, who only had time to use one hand to support his body, saw Sha Feng flash in front of him and punch him with lightning speed. From Yu Yang's point of view, it was as if Akagi was sliding on the ground and was sent flying by Sha Feng's punch. Dong! Akagi was sent flying like a top and his body fell on a rock mountain. The huge force smashed the rock mountain that was as hard as the god-destroying secret gold into pieces. Cough cough! Akagi, who had been continuously attacked by the 3 divine masters, Frost Cold, Sha Feng and Zhao Shi, finally vomited blood. He vomited blood. What made him the most passive was that his right ankle was still locked with an ice chain. The other end of the ice chain was the Northwest Divine Master, Frost Cold. As long as this Northwest Divine Master did not remove the shackles, any action of Akagi would be strongly disrupted by him. What was the outcome of this battle for Akagi? Not to mention outsiders, even Yu Yang, who had been fighting against adversity for a long time, felt a headache when faced with such a predicament. Chapter 1167. After fighting for 10 minutes, Akagi had already been knocked down dozens of times. Blood splattered all over the ground. Among the 3 of them attacking together, the North God Lord Zhao Shi's heavy palm attack was the most powerful. Zhao Shi's palm attack looked soft and gentle on the surface, but it was actually more powerful than lightning, penetrating through the body's internal organs. Yu Yang frowned as he watched. He couldn't think of a good way to get out of this predicament. Especially when he couldn't expose himself, it was even more difficult. If it was Yu Yang fighting alone, he might have a way to deal with Zhao Shi, Frost Cold and Sha Feng. However, the one he was fighting now was the Southeast God Master Akagi, whose background was already known by his enemies. Akagi, you idiot, die! Sha Feng was like a hungry wolf, chasing after Akagi relentlessly. Scram! Akagi was already prepared to die since the beginning of the battle. He didn't even think about how to escape. In the divine domain created by the ancient divine weapon, no one could easily escape from its will, not to mention that there were 3 enemies with the same level of strength as him. Akagi was thinking about how to drag one of his 3 opponents into the water. He would fight to the death and let his opponent be his scapegoat. Sha Feng pounced towards him at lightning speed, his fists raining down like rain. His fists landed on Akagi's back. Blood spurted out from Akagi's mouth, but he didn't move an inch, as if he wasn't the one who was heavily injured. Under Sha Feng's storm-like attacks, Akagi slowly closed his eyes. His right hand stretched out as if he was caressing his lover. Sha Feng's expression changed when he heard this. He leaped high up and immediately escaped from Akagi's attack range. He carefully retreated to the side of Zhao Shi and Frost Cold. Golden light burst forth. A pillar of energy rose from the top of a gold grimoire, pointing towards the sky. A guardian spirit beast that looked like a dragon and a flame appeared. With thunder and lightning, it merged into Akagi's body, instantly increasing its master's energy by 10 times. A domain arose. It was a golden flame domain, and the image of a horned dragon's head could be faintly seen. Perhaps this was the origin of Akagi's godly name. Akagi gently turned a page with his left hand. A spiritual weapon appeared in his left hand. It was like a halberd but not a halberd, like a machete but not a battle-axe. Although it didn't have the supreme power of a true divine weapon, it was still unique and became a divine weapon with its own attribute. At first, Yu Yang even suspected that it was a low-grade god artifact, but after confirming it again and again, he realized that it was only a quasi-god artifact. With the rank of a quasi-god artifact, it was able to emit the power of a true divine weapon. This was the divine weapon that Akagi had been using to fight for 10,000 years, the dragon swallowing. The dragon swallowing was not a halberd, nor was it an ordinary axe. Instead, it was a horned spear shaped like a dragon but not a dragon. Relying on it, Akagi was able to sit on the Southeast Divine Lord's throne. And it had not been lost for 10,000 years. Today, Akagi needed to use it to fight the enemy again. Perhaps it already knew that this was its master's last battle, so the spiritual dragon swallowing shook and buzzed non-stop. Old friend, let us fight these fated enemies together. Ever since Tai Yen and Bing Li died in battle, I actually had this kind of awareness. It's just that I promised Deicide that I must persevere no matter what. Today, my efforts have reached the end. Even if I die on the battlefield, I can rest in peace. Akagi gently stroked the body of the dragon swallowing, as if he was talking to a close friend, pouring out his heart. The Eastern Divine Lord Deicide was not here, so Akagi could only fight alone. The only person he could always rely on was the dragon swallowing in his own hands. My king, don't leave me, in the grimoire world. Perhaps it sensed the danger outside, or perhaps it was because of the guidance of the beast. A woman in white flew out, crying and throwing herself into Akagi's arms. Her beautiful face was like a pear blossom in the rain. If it was not shrouded in sorrow, she would be a great beauty that could easily captivate all living things. Her hands tightly hugged Akagi's waist, sobbing uncontrollably. Her voice was like a cuckoo crying blood. If people heard it, they would all be heartbroken. Akagi was not a cold-hearted person, but the situation was like a tiger pressing against a man. He could only helplessly sigh at his bad luck. He slowly stretched out his right hand and very gently stroked his lover's long hair. At this time, he was no longer the Southeastern Divine Lord who fought a bloody battle, but a good husband who bid his wife affectionately before leaving. If he was not in a desperate situation, how could he be so heroic? My king, I will bid farewell. I know that my king is most afraid of loneliness, so I will leave first. The road ahead is not far. I will wait for you. I will not let my king's journey be empty and lonely. My king, I will leave first. The woman in white kissed her lover affectionately. She knelt down again. Hugging her lover's knees, she kissed his trembling big hand with tears streaming down her face. She knew that in his heart, he was also reluctant to let her leave, but he could not make her stay. It was precisely because of this that she wanted to bid farewell more firmly, so as not to drag him down. She kissed his big hand again and again. It was not enough. Finally, she bowed respectfully again and kowtowed again and again. When she raised her little face to look at him again, her chest was already deeply pierced with a chastity dagger, all the way to the hilt. "My king, if you have the chance to leave, don't hesitate. I will wait for you in front for 10,000 years, 100,000 years. Cough cough, this ambition of mine will never change. I will leave now, my king, take care." She weakly held onto Akaji's big hand, and in the end, her body could no longer support herself as she slid backwards. She still wanted to grab onto the corner of his clothes, even though she was determined to leave first. She was still reluctant to part with him. Akaji also stretched out his hand towards her, who was slowly falling to the ground, but he did not forcefully hold onto her little hand. Instead, he painfully closed his eyes and let her fall to the ground reluctantly. He could have saved her life just now, but he did not do that. Because, he also knew, she was determined to die. If he died here, she would definitely not live alone. Rather than letting her be sealed in the dark grim war world for the rest of her life, or be held captive by the enemy and be humiliated by the enemy, it would be better to let her go peacefully and travel with him in the future. This was also her biggest wish in her heart. Hence, even though he was reluctant and could not bear to part with her, he also had to respect her choice. There's no meaning in dying like this if you don't die tragically enough. Let me help you guys. Unknowingly, a shining golden trident appeared in Sha Feng's hands. Under Akaji's furious gaze, he mercilessly pierced the chest of the white-clothed woman who was still breathing. Then, he lifted her limp body up and stabbed it in the air. Sha Feng! Akaji angrily pounced towards Sha Feng, but when Frost Cold pulled the ice chains, not only did Akaji fail to send Sha Feng flying due to his anger, he was also kicked away by Sha Feng. "You're finally a little miserable now, but I think it's not enough. Actually, you can be even more miserable." Sha Feng laughed out loud. "My beloved concubine." Akaji's eyes shed 2 streaks of bloody tears. My king. Go, go." The white-clothed woman who was stabbed in the air by the golden trident had already been dyed with blood. Her tear-stained face struggled with all her might to smile weakly and weakly. This smile was like the withering of 100 flowers. Heaven and earth. Everything was overshadowed. The white-clothed woman's fingers trembled slightly, as if she still wanted to comfort Akaji, who was so angry that his face was distorted but he couldn't break free from the ice chains in his desperation. However, this gentle movement exhausted the last of her life force. Her delicate head drooped down powerlessly, and her eyes slowly closed. She, who had a faint smile on her lips, couldn't hold on for even a second longer. She died. Ow 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 ow. Akaji suddenly went crazy. His body erupted with a strength that was 100 times stronger than before. The ice chains that were wrapped around the joints of his body made him break apart in anger, breaking inch by inch. Frost Cold, who was pulling him, was so shocked that the perlicue between his thumb and index finger was bleeding. Even the expressionless North god Lord Zhao she revealed a vigilant light in his eyes. Sha Feng didn't have time to mince the blood-clothed woman's corpse that was stabbed in the golden trident, and his face was hit by Akaji's angry punch. Accompanied by this heavy punch that was filled with hatred, 2 of his teeth also broke and flew into the air, dancing with his blood. Akaji's dragon swallowing stabbed straight at Sha Feng. He barely dodged it, and used the golden trident to block this stab that pierced through his heart. On the other side, he wasn't able to block Akaji's head hammer. His sternum exploded. His whole body shot into the rock wall in the distance like a cannonball. "Beloved, don't go too far in the darkness. Just stay a little ahead and wait for me. After I kill Sha Feng, I'll come find you. I know that you're afraid of the dark the most. I won't let you wait for long." Akaji, who was like a madman just now, suddenly stopped being crazy. He regained his senses, stabbed the dragon swallowing beside him, and stretched out his hands to catch his lover who was falling from the sky. Akaji's tiger eyes were filled with tears. He placed her on the ground with incomparable gentleness, and wiped away the blood that splashed on her face with extreme gentleness. Sha Feng returned at lightning speed, and angrily smashed the golden trident heavily on Akaji's forehead. Akaji, however, turned a deaf ear to it. Blood dripped down from his forehead like spring water. When Sha Feng realized that his attack didn't work, he immediately used the trident to stab again. Akaji held his lover with his left hand, and stretched out his right hand. When the middle blade of the golden trident pierced through his right palm, he gripped it forcefully, and his divine power exploded, twisting that quasi-sage golden trident into a fried dough twist, and finally breaking it with a twist. Akaji retracted his bleeding right hand, and with both hands holding his lover, he walked towards the rock wall where Yu Yang was hiding. He gently placed her in a small pit that was less than 100 meters away from Yu Yang, bent down, and kissed his lover for the last time. The furious Sha Feng lifted a huge rock. It smashed heavily on Akaji's head. Akaji also turned a blind eye to it. When the huge rock was about to bury the two of them, he exerted his strength and forcefully broke the huge rock. With a heavy punch, he sent Sha Feng, who was entangled with him, flying 1,000 meters away. "All of you shall be buried with me." Akaji, who was covered in blood, returned to the place where he stabbed Dragon Swallowing. He slowly pulled out this godly weapon that had accompanied him for his entire life, and raised his head towards the sky, his face full of determination. "I don't want to live anymore, and all of you shouldn't think about living anymore. What a joke with just you?" The Northwest Divine Master proudly strode forward. At some point in time, a divine weapon had wrapped itself around his right hand. It was also a quasi-divine artifact treasure, and whether it was in terms of power or grade, it did not lose out to the Soul Lock Heavenly Heart treasure chain of the dragon-swallowing, horned azure spear. He fearlessly faced Akaji, who had become 100 times stronger because of despair and sadness. He walked forward with his head held high, and sneered continuously. "Don't think that only you have a quasi-divine weapon, and don't think that only you have a grimoire. You, who can't even defeat Sha Feng, are not qualified to challenge me, let alone Zhao Shi. Akaji, you are actually the weakest among the 8 Godmasters. If it wasn't for deicide, you would have been killed by us long ago. Do you think that you would still be alive for tens of thousands of years?" Boom boom. On the other side, Sha Feng and Zhao Shi didn't hold back anymore. They summoned their grimoires and godly weapons, and exploded with power, preparing to give Akaji the final fatal blow. Yu Yang didn't pay attention to the 3 of them fighting. Most of his attention was focused on the woman buried under the rubble. Why did Akaji want to bury her here? Could it be that there was some secret? Was this a hint? Or was it a meaningless action that Akaji did casually? Chapter 1168. The guardian beast that Sha Feng had summoned was an elemental-type tornado. After fusing, he casually pointed. Dozens of terrifying tornadoes appeared on the ground. Even in the god domain created by the main body of the ancient remnant, this elemental whirlwind could still display extraordinary power. His treasure was even stranger. It was shaped like a flywheel and continuously spun, using divine power as its kinetic energy to cut through everything in the world. Compared to Akaji's dragon swallowing, this quasi-divine weapon Spiral Fang was not the slightest bit weaker. In fact, it was even more bizarre. On the other side of the battlefield, the northern god, Lord Zhao Shi, had a low-grade divine weapon that was above dragon swallowing, Spiral Fang, and Soul Lock in terms of quality and power. It was a mirror. the true wonder divine mirror. This was not a quasi-divine weapon, but a true divine weapon. Zhao Shi's guardian beast made Yu Yang, who was watching the battle from below, wary. This was because the Northern God Lord's guardian beast was a plant-type lantern grass, a beast that didn't seem to have any attack power. As the Northern God Lord, how could Zhao Shi summon such a weak beast to fight? He must have his reasons for doing so. Furthermore, this seemingly weak and harmless lantern grass was probably the true reason why Zhao Shi was able to suppress others and become the powerful Northern God Lord. Akaji, you can die now. Sha Feng laughed maniacally. He pointed with his finger and a tornado immediately appeared under Akaji's feet. Even as a God Lord, Akaji couldn't resist this kind of suction. He was instantly pulled out of the ground. In midair, Akaji waved his dragon swallowing, tearing through space and piercing through the tornado. However, Sha Feng had been waiting for a long time. The spiral fang in his hand slashed heavily on Akaji's waist, intending to cut Akaji's body into two. Frost Cold was even faster than Sha Feng. His soul-binding chain coiled around Akaji's left arm like a snake preying on its prey. When Akaji swung his spear to block, the soul-binding chain transformed into a gigantic net that covered the sky, wrapping around Akaji and dragging him down to the ground. The ground was frozen for 1,000 miles. Northwest God Lord Frost Cold's guardian beast, Glacier, was a gigantic element-type beast. When it opened its mouth and spat towards the sky, the entire world turned into a world of ice and snow. Hailstones fell from the sky, crashing onto the ground one after another. The temperature in the sky was unimaginably low. Even a drop of water would turn into ice. Yu Yang, who was watching the battle from afar, felt a kind of numbness. His agility was no longer there and his mobility was greatly reduced. Compared to the sky, the attacks on the ground were even more terrifying. Thousands of ice blades drilled out of the ground, stretching out and piercing towards the sky. Akaji bounced up from the ground, but his whole body was frozen and turned into a snowman. Other than the dragon swallowing in his hand, all other parts of his body were frozen. Even his eyes were no exception. Get lost! Akaji burst out of the ice and spat out a mouthful of cold air. He waved his dragon swallowing angrily and hit the soul-binding chain away. Although he hated the Northwest God Lord Frost Cold, Akaji knew that he couldn't kill two God Lords. Hence, the target of mutual destruction fell on the Southwest God Lord Sha Feng, who hated him more and would never forgive him. Come at me, I haven't tortured you enough. Don't die too quickly. When Sha Feng saw Akaji, who was covered in ice water, pouncing towards him, he didn't retreat at all. Instead, he faced him confidently. He used the quasi-divine weapon, Spiral Fang, to fight against the dragon swallowing while he waved his fists and fought against Akaji. Boom boom. When two God Lords with similar strength fought, it would be difficult to determine the winner within 100 days. It was not easy for Akaji to kill Sha Feng now. After all, he was severely injured previously. He didn't have an advantage in terms of body and strength. What was more difficult was that with the two God Lords, Zhao Shi and Frost Cold, there was no chance for Akaji to succeed. If he really could kill Sha Feng, it would be impossible unless a miracle happened or an ancient god descended to help him. Frost Cold let out a long roar towards the sky. His voice shook the mountains and rivers. Following Frost Cold's roar, which was comparable to the cold wind of the extreme north, snow began to fall inside and outside the god domain created by the consciousness of the ancient relic. This was one of the Northwest God Lord Frost Cold's unique skills, 10,000 miles snowdrift. Every snowflake carried Frost Cold's murderous intent. Every snowflake was connected to his will. As long as it touched any object, these snowflakes would immediately activate the god power from within Frost Cold's body and freeze the enemy to death. Yu Yang let out a breath of cold air. Like a cat, he sneaked out quietly. He stole the body of the woman buried under the rubble, who committed suicide and was killed by Sha Feng with his golden trident. Fire! Akaji's body burned with a rising god fire. It was like a dragon or a flame, and all the ice frost cold's chi was repelled. Just as the northwest god Lord Frost Cold's attack failed, the north god Lord Zhao Shi suddenly moved. He aimed the true wonder divine mirror, which was floating in the air, at Akaji. Then, he picked up the lantern grass beside him and shone it. A strange light that was thousands of times more brilliant than the divine light on his body gushed out and condensed into a beam of light that cut through time and space. It was as if it was destined to hit Akaji since thousands of years ago. It directly shone on Akaji's body and blasted Akaji, who had no time to react at all, over 10,000 meters away. On the surface, his body was unharmed, but Akaji was howling in pain. Yu Yang was shocked when he saw this. Soul attack. This North God Lord Zhao Shi's lantern grass combined with the true wonder divine mirror could actually achieve a soul attack that was close to Ah Man's death stare. Moreover, this kind of divine mirror's illumination attack was much better than the death stare, which had a very low probability of success. As long as he seized the best opportunity, Zhao Shi could attack at any time. Ah Man's death stare, on the other hand, could only rely on luck. Akaji covered his head with one hand and used the dragon swallowing to support his body with the other. Frost Cold threw a big ice ball at his head and froze Akaji. The soul-binding chain wrapped around the ice ball and threw it to Sha Feng, who was in the air. Sha Feng used the spiral tooth and cut the big ice ball that froze Akaji in half. Blood spurted from Akaji's waist and abdomen. He was almost cut in half by the spiral tooth. He was in incomparable pain and howled in pain. However, he did not defend. The dragon-swallowing spear in his hand pierced Sha Feng, piercing through his enemy's lower abdomen and coming out from his ribs. Even if he had to risk his life, he wanted to drag Sha Feng down with him. This was Akaji's biggest wish. There was no way he would be lucky today. But even if he died, he would not let his old enemy, Sha Feng, have an easy time. Damn it! Sha Feng used the spiral tooth to hit the dragon swallowing heavily and borrowed the momentum to retreat 10,000 meters away. He screamed in pain. Zhao Shi, are you still not serious? I'm about to be dragged into the water by this madman Chi Chiu. Have you forgotten what you promised Black Day? Don't tell me that you want to go back on your words now? If you had used your full strength from the start, we would not have been injured at all. What are you waiting for? If Deicide and Tencho rush over, the plan will fail. Are you going to watch the plan that you have been planning for 10,000 years go down the drain? You don't need to remind me. I know what I should do. Zhao Shi's expression was calm and expressionless. Useless, Sha Feng. You can't even beat an injured Akaji? The Northwest God Lord Frost Cold had a face full of contempt. Indeed, compared to Zhao Shi and Frost Cold, Sha Feng was slightly inferior. But the reason why he was injured, it had nothing to do with strength. It was the result of Akaji risking his life. Akaji risked his life to kill Sha Feng. If it was not for Frost Cold and Zhao Shi's help, how could Sha Feng be standing here so easily? Even if he did not die, he would still lose a layer of skin. Zhao Shi looked at Akaji, who was vomiting blood in pain, and slowly raised his palm. Akaji, surrender, I can spare your life. Akaji laughed wildly, blood spurting out of his mouth. His attitude showed that he would rather die than surrender. The true wonder divine mirror turned and the divine light shone on Akaji's body. Akaji's whole body was sluggish, and his consciousness seemed to be sealed by time. Zhao Shi did not need any trick. He slowly made his move and slapped the top of Akaji's head with an extremely heavy palm. Immediately, his skull cracked and blood spurted out from the 7 orifices on Akaji's face. Akaji waved the dragon-swallowing spear. He did not stab at Zhao Shi, who was beside him, but instead stabbed at Sha Feng, who was pouncing on him. Zhao Shi raised his hand again, and slapped a heavy palm on the back of Akaji's heart. Akaji's heart almost burst, but he resisted the urge to spurt out a mouthful of blood. Instead, he took advantage of the momentum. Dragon swallowing pushed away Frost Cold's soul-binding chains and rushed towards Sha Feng with his bloodied body. He completely ignored Sha Feng's twisting teeth, slashing neck. He only used all his strength and slammed his head into Sha Feng's face. Zhao Shi and Frost Cold chased after Akaji and tried to kill him, but Akaji turned a deaf ear to them. He wholeheartedly chased after Sha Feng. He was knocked down nearly 100 times and was heavily injured to the point of death, but he still stubbornly refused to change. 5 minutes later, Akaji could no longer hold on and fell onto the ground. Sha Feng stepped heavily on Akaji's face and laughed wildly. "Akaji, no matter how arrogant you are, aren't you still the mud under my feet now? Ha ha ha, a fool like you whose strength is ranked last among the 8 God Masters. What qualifications do you have to look down on me?" Pooh! The weak Akaji spat out a mouthful of blood. Sha Feng was furious. He madly stepped on Akaji's face with his feet, as if he wanted to vent out all the depression he had for the past 10,000 years. Zhao Shi frowned slightly, but he did not say anything in the end. Frost Cold also did not agree to humiliate his opponent like this. He could use any method to kill his opponent, but after winning, he would not act like a madman and humiliate his opponent crazily. When Sha Feng was trampling on Akaji's face, the dragon swallowing that had fallen far away suddenly turned into a ray of strange light. It looked like a dragon, but not a dragon, and also like a horned dragon, but not a horned dragon. Swoosh! It was so fast that it was unknown how many times faster than the speed of sound that pierced through the knee that Sha Feng used to step on people. This is practically courting death. Sha Feng was in extreme pain and decided not to play anymore. He directly tore Akaji's body into 1,000 pieces. He pulled out the dragon swallowing spear that was stained with blood and angrily threw it 10,000 meters away. Then, he raised the spiral-tooth flywheel in his hand and heavily chopped towards Akaji's neck. "Who dares to touch my brother?" A ray of blade energy flashed from the distant horizon. In the blink of an eye, it appeared in front of him. Time and sound lagged far behind. This ray of blade energy was incomparably mysterious. It did not harm a single hair on Akaji, but it slashed Sha Feng to the ground and almost killed him on the spot. There is a middle-aged man with a dignified appearance who is not angry. He steps on the saber and appears beside Chichio. He ignores the sand and the northwest god, Shuang and Han, who are hurriedly retreating. He only cares about the dying man in front of him, Chichio. Akaji struggled to squeeze out a smile. "Tencho, you finally came. It's a pity that I can no longer fight alongside you." The middle-aged man's arrogant face was full of sorrow. "It's all my fault. If I didn't come late, you wouldn't have ended up like this. Akaji, my brother, whatever wish you have, I will definitely fulfill it for you." Akaji used a special technique of telepathy to pass on his unfulfilled wish and personal secret to the person who had come. He was the master of the Southern God Nation, the Southern God Master Tencho, whom even the Western God Master Black Day dared not look down upon. Although there was no hope of survival, Akaji was very comforted. He did not think that he would meet his brother in the final moments of his life and pass on his greatest secret in time. With this, he would definitely be able to reverse the situation together with Boss Deicide. Tencho and Deicide were far stronger than him. They would definitely be able to avenge him. "My brother, I understand. These wishes and secrets, I will definitely." The person pulled out a divine blade and slashed it at Akaji's neck. Then, he pierced the divine blade into Akaji's heart. Akaji did not react to the attack. He stared blankly at this familiar yet strange brother of his. Even in death, he did not dare and did not want to believe that his brother would actually brandish a blade at him. He truly died with everlasting regret. The person looked up to the sky and laughed. As expected, Deicide handed over all his secrets to you. Don't worry, my brother. I'll definitely tell Heidai about your secret. After sending you on your way, I don't mind revealing my identity to you. If you become a dead man and still have the ability to inform Deicide, then I have nothing to say. Do you want to ask me who I am? Ha ha, Black Day called me brother, so who do you think I am? In this world, only a fool like you and an idiot like Deicide would believe that I am an ally. Who dares to touch my brother? This is what I said, but unfortunately, you are not my brothers. Black Day is. Akagi opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out. Blood had already filled his mouth. His pupils gradually dilated. Out of focus, Akagi's dragon swallowing is a quasi-divine weapon. It is not easy to imitate. I hope I can deceive Deicide. What shocked Yu Yang the most was not the sneak attack of the man with the divine blade, but the appearance of another person. Jiwuri. The current Jiwuri had become exactly the same as Akagi. His words and actions were vivid. If not for Akagi's corpse in front of him, Yu Yang would not dare to confirm that this man who looked like Akagi was Jiwuri. Seeing this scene, even if Yu Yang was an idiot, he believed that he could understand. Chapter 1169. Jiwuri's move was truly ruthless. First, they ganged up on Akagi, 3 against 1, and heavily injured him. Fearing that Akagi wouldn't die, they even set up the southern god Lord Tencho as a backup. In the end, Akagi fell into their trap. Not only did he die on the spot, he also mistakenly trusted Tencho and told Tencho the secret that Deicide entrusted to him. In this way, Black Day and Deicide would undoubtedly have the upper hand in the battle. Tencho was the greatest spy in the eastern camp, the northeastern god Lord Qing Yun was neutral, and the southeastern god Lord Akagi had died in battle. In the eastern camp, Deicide was the only one left. Furthermore, Deicide still had a hidden chess piece like Tencho by his side, who could turn against him at any time to deal a fatal blow. If this was not enough, there was also Jiwuri, who had fused with a special type beast to transform into Akagi, to join the battle and besiege Deicide. Deicide was alone, but he had to fight against his lifelong rival, Black Day, Zhaoxi, Shafeng, Frost Cold, and the other 4 god lords, in addition to his greatest spy, Tencho, and the transformed Akagi Jiwuri. This was even more serious than fighting against 6 people alone. Under such a terrible situation, even if he had the strength of the strongest person in the outer mountains, he wouldn't be able to defy the heavens. Deicide's battle had not even begun, but he was already destined to be defeated with a grievance. Yu Yang shook his head. He sighed inwardly. At the same time, he was even more vigilant against Jiwuri, who planned everything. For 10,000 years, it wasn't that Black Day didn't want to get rid of Deicide, the obstacle, and become the strongest person in the outer mountains. However, he couldn't succeed even though he had the obvious advantage in strength. Now that Jiwuri had come, Akagi was killed, and Deicide had fallen into a situation where he would definitely lose. If all these were planned by Jiwuri, then he was too terrifying. Yu Yang had to get rid of Jiwuri as soon as possible. Otherwise, he would become a huge problem in the future. Is Akagi really dead? The Akagi that Jiwuri transformed into looked down at the real Akagi's corpse. His divine sense is completely scattered, his divine power has melted away, even his grimoire is out of contract, and his hui wu is dim. How could Akagi still be alive? Shafeng, who had suffered multiple injuries, saw that Akagi was really dead. He endured the pain and laughed loudly. If everyone is still worried, I can chop his head off and make it into a chamber pot. Forget it, Akagi was a divine master after all. Even if we didn't say anything when he was alive, we can still give him some face after his death. Respecting our enemies is also respecting ourselves. Zhao Shi didn't agree with the act of humiliating Akaji's corpse. Not only him, even the merciless Frost Cold also shook his head. He didn't agree with Sha Feng's action, which was detrimental to a strong warrior's bearing. If Akaji was not dead, Frost Cold wouldn't mind slashing his body 10,000 times. However, Akaji was already dead. Even if he dismembered his corpse, it would be meaningless. Instead, it would damage the heart of a strong warrior. He's dead, so what if his corpse is intact? The middle-aged man waved his sword and cut Void apart. Then, he disappeared instantly. The summoning grimoire is indeed out of contract. Ji Wuri didn't believe the superficial signs of divine sense dissipating and divine power melting away. To him, he was used to seeing all kinds of strange innate abilities of the various races in the heaven realm. He had seen thousands of different special abilities like pretending to be dead. Each one was more cunning than the other. If he was not careful, he would be tricked. Therefore, to Ji Wuri, he would never easily trust his enemies. Even if his enemies were already dead, he would still maintain enough vigilance and defense. The only thing he could trust was the summoning grimoire. The summoning grimoire wouldn't lie. If its master was not dead, no matter how much it pretended to be or how much it deceived, it wouldn't lie. Instead, it would maintain the contract. On the contrary, if the summoning grimoire was out of contract, then its master would definitely die. There was no other possibility. Zhao Shi intentionally or unintentionally glanced at Yu Yang's hiding place. Yu Yang hurriedly held his breath and stayed motionless. He was afraid that he would be discovered by the Northern God Lord, who had unfathomable senses. Especially that Zhen Miao divine mirror. It was the most terrifying. Fortunately, Zhao Shi only suspected that it was an illusion and didn't investigate further. After all, no matter how he thought about it, he would never have imagined that there was someone in this world who could hide under his nose and watch the battle without anyone noticing. Zhao Shi and Frost Cold left together after confirming Akaji's death. Ji Wuri, who had transformed into Akaji, also stretched out his hand to sense the dark and dim summoning grimoire. After confirming the real Akaji's death, he also floated away. Everyone in the field, including Sha Feng, didn't have any ideas about the dragon-swallowing spear. This was because they all knew that the divine equipment chose its master. Even if the dragon-swallowing spear wasn't a divine equipment, it already possessed a certain level of consciousness and intelligence. Akaji had died in battle. It didn't mean that anyone could become its new master. Sha Feng raised his leg and kicked the dragon-swallowing spear that was stuck in the ground high up into the air. Just as it was about to fall down, Sha Feng knocked the dragon-swallowing spear away and deeply nailed it into the chest of Akaji's corpse. Akaji was already dead and didn't have any reaction. Sha Feng laughed strangely when he saw this. He turned into a ray of golden light and left the battlefield. Even the main body of the ancient artifact that he had carefully consecrated was left on the spot, not even sparing it another glance. The existence of the main body of the ancient artifact would create a divine domain that was 100 times weaker, comparable to the divine destruction's secret realm. Sha Feng wasn't an idiot. If he didn't need it to murder Akaji, he would never dare to bring it around. Something's wrong. Yu Yang didn't immediately appear. Even though everyone had left, his sense of danger hadn't disappeared. Yu Yang chose to stay. He decided to wait and see. After an hour, there was a sudden change in the battlefield. Akaji, who was originally dead, started to tremble strangely. It seemed like he was going through a zombie transformation. Yu Yang, who was used to seeing big scenes, couldn't help but be filled with curiosity. He opened his eyes wide and watched Akaji's every move. Akaji's bruised and bloody body quickly recovered. He slowly stretched out his hands and closed them again. His 10 fingers extended and retracted, just like a frozen person who had just woken up and was moving his body. A minute passed. Akaji's eyes condensed with divine light and his consciousness returned. He stretched out his hand and gently pulled out the dragon swallowing that was stuck in his chest. The dragon-swallowing dragon buzzed incessantly, as if it was very excited to see its master return. When Chi-Chio supported his head and neck, he adjusted the broken skull one by one, allowing it to heal itself under the divine power. The wounds on his body had long since recovered and were as good as before. Even the bloody hole in his chest that was pierced by the dragon's swallowing had disappeared, leaving only a red mark the size of a wound. That was a new scar from the regeneration of his flesh. 3 minutes. Akaji had completely recovered. There were no longer any wounds on his body. If Yu Yang hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that there was such a strange thing. He could be revived after being killed? What kind of inherent skill was this? Right now, the only thing that could prove that Akaji had gone through a tough battle was that more than 70% of his divine power had disappeared. Less than 30% of his divine power could be regained. If he hadn't been killed, no matter how many injuries Akaji had, he wouldn't be this weak. Akaji caressed the dragon-swallowing spear lightly, as if he was caressing his lover's skin. He held the dragon swallowing in his hands. As long as I recover my divine power, I will definitely kill that bastard Sha Feng. Of course, I will also kill everyone in the Western camp. No one will believe or know that I have the inherent skill Dragon Whiskers regenerate. It's a pity that my summoning grimoire has been lost. I paid a huge price to obtain it according to the secret contract between Taiyin and Bingley, but now it's gone again. I wonder if I can contract a grimoire again if I pay the same price in the future. Sighing slightly, Akaji walked towards Yu Yang's hiding place. He prepared to move the rubble away. He wanted to find his lover's corpse. Yu Yang was surprised to find that the girl who had moved away earlier was also recovering. Her injuries were getting better. Although her recovery speed was not as fast as Akaji's, it was still very shocking. Perhaps it wouldn't take long for this woman to regain her senses, because now her eyelashes had started to tremble, as if she had regained some consciousness. Live and die together? So this girl's special ability is to live and die together. Yu Yang had his suspicions before, but before he could find out, the truth had already been laid out in front of him. This girl had the ability to live and die together. As long as Akaji did not die, even if her body was destroyed, she could be reborn in a form of energy. She would not really die. Akaji, who was moving the rubble, suddenly changed his expression. He held the dragon swallowing and straightened his back. You've become so weak, but you can still sense me. No wonder you're Akaji, one of the 8 great masters of the Outer Mountains who played dead. Sha Feng had unknowingly appeared behind Akaji. Akaji only recovered after an hour, but this Sha Feng's patience was extraordinary. He actually waited for an entire hour until Akaji had completely recovered before he showed himself. With your intelligence, you can actually guess that I'm faking my death. That's really beyond my expectations. Akaji held the dragon swallowing in his hand. His expression was calm and he did not panic at all. You only have 30% of your strength left, and you still want to die together with me? Aren't you a little too naive? Sha Feng listened and laughed loudly. As long as I have 10%, I can kill you. Akaji snorted coldly. You're very confident. Sha Feng did not believe him at all. I've inherited Taiyin's divine power from his body. It's just that I've never shown it to anyone for the past 10,000 years. As long as I have 10% of my divine power, it's enough for me to activate the Taiyin's divine power hidden in the dragon swallowing. Sha Feng, if not for Zhao Shi and the others, I won't even need a minute to kill you. Akaji swung the dragon swallowing in his hand with force. The divine power that even Yu Yang's Heaven Eye's divine vision could not see through gushed out. Once its power appeared, heaven and earth would be subdued. Wan Mo bowed his head. Sha Feng's expression changed instantly. The threat of death shrouded his heart. Although Tai Yin had been dead for 10,000 years, his divine power was still fresh in Sha Feng's memory. Yu Yang really did not expect that the situation would take such a turn. He exclaimed in his heart that it was exciting, as expected of an old monster that had lived for 10,000 years. None of them were fools. Everyone had a trump card. It was really not easy to defeat them easily. Goodbye, Sha Feng. Akaji raised the dragon swallowing and prepared to use Taiyan's divine power to strike a destructive blow. Even as the Southwest Divine Master, Sha Feng wanted to escape from such an authoritative Taiyan's divine power. His chances of survival were slim. The dragon swallowing pierced through the air and shattered heaven and earth in order to find out the truth. Yu Yang could not care less about exposing himself. He could not help but use his heaven eyes' divine vision. He discovered that Sha Feng, who was supposed to die without a doubt, did not die under Taiyan's divine power. Instead, he endured the pain of his heart being pierced by the dragon swallowing and summoned the gold grimoire. He instantly escaped into the grimoire world. Although Taiyan's divine power could destroy heaven and earth, it could not harm the gold grimoire at all. Needless to say, Sha Feng was hiding in the grimoire world. Akaji was stunned at first, then he became angry. In the end, he felt deeply helpless. Sha Feng quickly slipped out of the grimoire world. Although he was in a sorry state, he was still smiling at the depressed Akaji. You must have forgotten that when Tai Yin and Bingli revealed the ancient secret to the public, we all contracted the grimoire. Not only you, I also have a summoning grimoire. I am no longer a fake god that could be killed by a real god. Ha ha ha, I also have a summoning grimoire. Although it can never be upgraded and will forever be a gold grimoire, this is enough. I can also be called a real god. Akaji, you did not really possess Taiyan's divine power. You, who borrowed Taiyan's divine power and lost your summoning grimoire, are merely a fake god. How can you kill a real god like me in one hit? Unless the legendary Holy Elder descends, who else can kill me, Sha Feng, in one hit? Akaji stared at the smug Sha Feng. After a while, he spat out, I can't kill you, but others can. What a joke. Deicide and Black Day do not have the ability to kill me in one hit. In the outer mountains, although Deicide, Black Day, Zhao Shi and Tenshou are stronger than me, I do not fight them head-on. What can they do to me? You must be dreaming if you want to kill me. Deicide can't even protect himself now. Other than him, who else in the eastern camp has the ability to do that? Sha Feng's face was full of disdain. He was extremely disdainful of Akaji's words. How about I try? A clear voice that Sha Feng had never heard before rang in his ears. Although the voice was soft, it was heard in his ears. It was like thunder. Sha Feng, whose eardrums were almost shattered, was like a bird startled by the mere twang of a bow. He wanted to escape back to his grimoire world. He, who had just escaped from Taiyan's divine power attack, was shocked to find that his body was as heavy as a rock. He wanted to escape from the ground, but he felt that his feet were rooted to the ground. No matter how much he used his divine power and divine sense, he could not move an inch. A shadow walked out from behind him, passing by the little snake demon Loli who was glaring at Sha Feng. He did not launch a sneak attack from behind. Instead, he walked to the front of Sha Feng. After waiting for Sha Feng to prepare himself mentally and prepare to defend and counterattack, he slowly stretched out his hand and gestured to the adorable little Lamia. That's enough. Let him go. I think it's better for you to fight alone. If you join the fight, he might feel that it's unfair and feel wrong. What if he cries? Chapter 1170. Sha Feng was shocked at first as he thought that a divine master had appeared. Especially when he was frozen by Little Wen Li's binding inherent skill and divine beast's will. He was scared out of his wits. Luckily, Akaji did not use Taiyan's divine power to attack him. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Sha Feng, who had escaped death, wanted to break free and return to his grimoire world when Yu Yang walked towards him. However, just as he was about to do so, he was shocked to find out that the Divine Master who wanted to kill him was actually a young man. Age was not a problem for a strong warrior. However, this young man was too young. He was really too young. In Sha Feng's entire life, she had never seen such a young human male who had the strength of a divine emissary. While she was surprised and stunned, an unknown fire burned in the depths of her soul. A mere divine emissary, an ant-like young human, actually dared to tease her? The most unforgivable thing was that this brat actually had the cheek to say such shameless words. Fight him alone? If one more person joined the battle, he would be beaten to the point of crying? Was this brat awake or not? This was a fool's dream. With the meager power of a divine envoy, he dared to challenge a divine master like him? Die! Other than killing him instantly, Sha Feng felt that he could not forgive himself even if he wasted even a second to kill him. After confirming his opponent's power, and confirming that this was not a trap from Akaji's expression, Sha Feng ignored the identity and relationship of this young man in front of him and attacked immediately. He intended to use his divine power and terrifying killing intent to kill him instantly. No matter who this brat was or what his background was, he was definitely going to die. This was because the person he was challenging was a divine master like him. A divine must not be provoked by a mortal. His palm was 100 times faster than lightning as it pierced through the air towards Yu Yang's throat. He was prepared to pick this brat up like a chicken in 1,000th of a second, and then smash him heavily on the ground like an egg. He wanted to smash this arrogant and ignorant brat's head, or even his whole body, into a pile of mush. Rumble, he was indeed picked up like a little chick, and he was smashed to the ground like an egg. Unfortunately, the one who completed this task was not the angry Sha Feng. Instead, it was the guy from another world who looked so weak and harmless when he smiled. Akaji, who was watching the battle from the side, dropped his jaw and his eyes almost popped out. This was even more unbelievable than seeing an ant overturning a mammoth. As a divine master who had lived for more than 10,000 years, Akaji thought that he had seen most of the things in this world and had not missed anything. However, he suddenly realized that he was a frog at the bottom of a well. He could not help but sigh at the mysterious young man in front of him. Compared to Taiyan and Bingley in the past, the miracles that this young man in front of him had given birth to were even more shocking and unimaginable. Impossible, no, this is impossible. Sha Feng, who was grabbed by the neck and smashed to the ground, was still unwilling to accept the fact even though his body was in extreme pain. I'm really sorry, I accidentally used too much force just now. The guy apologized. I will be careful from now on, please don't cry. Not to mention Sha Feng, even Akaji, who was watching from the side, had the urge to vomit blood. You are just a god's messenger. How can a mere god's messenger touch me? Sha Feng suspected that he was dreaming. This, with your intelligence, it will be very difficult to explain. Yu Yang expressed his regret. Then, he gave a suggestion that took care of Sha Feng's emotions. If you think that me grabbing your neck and smashing you to the ground to eat sand will hurt your pride, why don't I just slap your face? I guarantee that although the slap will be loud and crisp, it will definitely not hurt you. Even if your face will become slightly swollen, there will definitely not be any internal injuries. Believe me, my control is not bad, and I have a lot of experience in slapping faces. Yu Yang's suggestion made Sha Feng so angry that his nose became crooked. The corner of his mouth twitched. He wanted to scold him, but because he was too angry, he could not say a word. He could only point his trembling finger at Yu Yang, unable to find any words to respond to him. Supreme will. On the other hand, Akaji, who was watching from the side, saw something. Akaji was initially puzzled, but the performance of the two great gods, Taiyan and Bingley, from 10,000 years ago, flashed through his mind, and he came to a sudden realization. Back then, the two great gods, Taiyin and Bingli, were fundamentally different from the ordinary fake gods. Not to mention a fake god like Shafeng, even Black Day would be as scared as a mouse seeing a cat when he saw Taiyin and Bingli. How could he be as mighty as he was today? When the ancient god's relic appeared, the experts of the sky beyond Avalon heard the news and hundreds of god-rank experts came to snatch it. However, Taiyin and Bingli joined forces and killed all of them in the god-vanquishing secret realm. It was the Beyond Heaven secret passage that connected Beyond Tower, Beyond Mountain, and Beyond Heaven. It was also because of the two great gods' seal. There was no news of it for 10,000 years. In the realm beyond heaven, the four great divine masters, who were the strongest, had no choice but to release the King of Gods, dangerous light, which had been sealed in the tower beyond tower since the ancient era, in order to obtain victory. Not only did the four Lord Gods of the sky beyond heaven die, but the divine weapon that belonged to them was also obtained by Deicide, Black Day, Tencho, and Zhao Shi. If it was not for the fact that they had to reseal Wei Guang and resist the backlash of the ancient code, which exhausted Taiyin and Bingli, they would not have died so early. If Taiyin and Bingli were still alive, how would the Beyond Heaven mountain end up like this? How would Black Day have the right to speak? Compared to the two great gods, Taiyin and Bingli, the young man in front of him was definitely not as strong. However, their realms were surprisingly similar. Even when this young man was fighting against the god-rank experts, his attitude was more relaxed and calm. It felt like he wasn't fighting, but toying with him. A feeling of looking down on him that was far beyond the mortal world was completely displayed by this young man. Even the two great gods, Taiyin and Bingli, did not have such a strong feeling. Akaji's mind flashed with the memories of the past as he compared them to the ones in front of him. He came to a shocking conclusion. This young man was comparable to Taiyin and Bingli in the past. At the very least, he was not weaker than either of the two great gods. Slap! Shafeng, who rushed forward to fight Yu Yang, was sent flying more than 10 meters away by Yu Yang's slap. Blood splattered from his teeth, and half of his face was almost beaten into a pig's head. Even a few of his sturdy teeth had loosened. Shafeng held his swollen face with his hands. Until now, he was still unwilling to believe the truth. He was a high and mighty god master. Yet, he was actually beaten up by a god envoy? This is impossible. It must be an illusion. It must be some kind of treasure or some kind of special inherent skill. This is definitely not real. I'm sorry, I hit you too hard again. I wanted to bear with it, but I couldn't. If you look at yourself in the mirror, you will understand how I feel. You definitely know how much your face deserves a beating. Yu Yang's voice was filled with apology as he sincerely expressed his concern and sympathy to Shafeng. Your face, when I look at it, makes me want to give you a big slap. It was not easy for me to hold back and only give you a slap. According to Yu Yang's words, he had already given Shafeng a lot of face by slapping Shafeng. As for Shafeng, other than feeling satisfied, he was also filled with gratitude. He might even have to open his mouth to express his gratitude. This was because it was not an easy thing to make Yu Yang bear with it. I will eat you raw. Shafeng's anger soared to the heavens. If he could catch Yu Yang right now, he might really eat this hateful guy from another world alive. Not only did he slap his face, but he also wanted him to be filled with gratitude. This request was too high, it was basically making things difficult for him. Not to mention Shafeng, even an enlightened monk might not be able to endure this humiliation. Remember, don't try to reason with a barbarian. We can't play the lute to a cow. Yu Yang saw Shafeng's explosive divine power and his earth-shattering attack, and still had the leisure to educate the little Lamia beside him. Yes. The extremely well-behaved little Lamia nodded obediently. Shafeng's divine power. When it exploded, it could destroy a huge mountain in a second. At this moment, he, who was furious, did not hold back anymore. He wanted to kill Yu Yang in a second. He definitely did not want to see this brat live for another second in this world. Sha Feng, who attacked with hatred, was so powerful that even Akaji, who was watching from the side, hurriedly retreated, not daring to face him head-on. After all, the current him did not even have 30% of his divine power left. If he was not careful, he could be killed by Sha Feng's heavy attack. Holding his lover, who was still unconscious for a long time and had not yet recovered his consciousness, Chi Chiu retreated 10 miles away. He was surprised to find out there was no need for him to retreat. Although Sha Feng's divine power was terrifying, it did not cause any harm at all. The young man in the divine power storm was still chatting with his guardian beast, as if there was no one else around. All the divine power seemed to have no effect on this young man, passing by him. Under the situation where Sha Feng was still alive, this mysterious young man had unbelievably condensed all of Sha Feng's divine power with just one finger, condensing it into an extremely compressed ball. It floated above his finger, rotating continuously. Akaji dared to say that even the original owner of the divine power, Sha Feng, could not do this. Even Black Day and Deicide could not condense such a highly compressed ball of divine power under such high pressure. Only Taiyin and Bingli could achieve such an effect. This young man, who could easily play Sha Feng in the palm of his hand, who was he? Where did he come from? Where did he come from? Thinking about this, Akaji's heart was filled with questions. Defeating Sha Feng was already a miracle, but toying with a god like Sha Feng in the palm of his hand could no longer be described as a miracle. Just how did he do it? Akaji could not understand. It was just like how he couldn't understand how Taiyin and Bingli were able to turn the situation around during the invasion of the 100 gods in the sky beyond heaven and completely destroy their opponents. Was the Ji Zun's will that Taiyin and Bingli mentioned really that important? 10,000 years had passed. Until today, Akaji still did not have an answer. Chapter 1171. Sha Feng was dumbfounded. He couldn't accept the strange fact in front of him. How could the divine power that was controlled by his own divine sense be condensed in the hands of the enemy? Moreover, the ability to compress divine power into a ball was something that Black Day and Deicide didn't have. Could it be that this human with the strength of an oracle was stronger than Black Day and Deicide? If this was the truth, then what was the point of fighting this battle? Just admit defeat directly. Sha Feng was arrogant again. He didn't dare to say that he was stronger than Black Day and Deicide. There must be something strange about this. In the end, Sha Feng still chose not to believe it and refused to admit the truth in front of him. His reason was that this brat in front of him couldn't be stronger than Black Day and Deicide. If he was stronger than Black Day and Deicide, he wouldn't have stayed here to watch the battle secretly. He would have jumped out and ambushed Akaji. In that case, even if he couldn't kill Tencho and Zhao Shi, he believed that severely injuring himself and frost cold wouldn't be a problem. This brat didn't do this, why? Because he didn't have such strength. Everything this brat did must be a facade. He wanted to deceive himself through a facade. To scare him away. Yes, it must be like this. If he really had strength stronger than Deicide, why would he talk so much nonsense with him? Wouldn't it be better to just kill him directly? Why would he need to show all kinds of threatening methods? The more high-profile he was, the more it proved that this brat had a guilty conscience. Maybe it was because of some kind of inherent skill, or the ability of some kind of beast or treasure that deceived his eyes. Otherwise, why was he still unscathed until now? If he really had the strength of Deicide, he could seriously injure him in a few moves. Why would he play these little tricks? Sha Feng deduced in the direction of the impossible. The more he thought about it, the more suspicious he felt. In the end, he confirmed that Yu Yang was a liar. I understand. A light seemed to flash in Sha Feng's mind as he grasped the main point. He was pleasantly surprised but also relaxed. On the surface, he smirked coldly. So it's like this. Your inherent skill, or your beast's ability, is also the same as Akaji's, completed with the help of external forces, right? The god domain created by the main body of this ancient relic is what you can rely on. Maybe it's Taiyin, maybe it's Bingley. Let me guess, you must have obtained some kind of secret technique from one of the two great gods. Before you grew up, you could manipulate divine power to create illusions. This god territory is a place of imprisonment for me and Akaji, but you're too weak. It doesn't matter if you're weakened by 100 times. On the contrary, you're using it to realize your innate ability. Is that so? You're so smart. Yu Yang said sarcastically. He neither admitted nor denied it. Sha Feng stared at Yu Yang. He watched as Yu Yang slowly swallowed the ball of highly concentrated divine power. He immediately snorted, "Humph, I've already found the weakness. You obtained Bing Li's secret technique. Only her mysterious ice divine power can easily dispel my explosive flame divine power. However, since you're Bing Li's successor, it'll be much easier. If you were Taeyan's successor, I'd be worried that you would swallow and assimilate my explosive flame divine power. Unfortunately, you're Bing Li's man. Ice and fire oppose each other. You're fated to not be able to swallow and assimilate my divine power. I can attack with ease now." Akaji pounced towards Sha Feng and launched a surprise attack. The dragon swallowing contained Taeyan's divine power. As long as it hit, then Sha Feng would have to bear the consequences. Unfortunately, Sha Feng was not an idiot. Although he was talking to Yu Yang, he was distracted. He had been using his divine sense to observe Akaji. His vigilance was not reduced. If Akaji was still at his peak, instead of only having 30% of his strength left after being ganged up on, perhaps Sha Feng would have a headache. However, Akaji's strength was greatly reduced. He could only rely on the attacks of Taeyan's divine power in the dragon swallowing. He was no longer the biggest threat that Sha Feng could not eliminate. A thought flashed through his mind. Sha Feng's afterimage disappeared from its original spot. When Akaji missed and launched another attack, Sha Feng had already slid more than 10 kilometers away. He was long out of the divine territory created by the main body of the ancient remnant. He pointed at Yu Yang inside the divine territory. "Brat, come out if you have the ability. Let's see if you can still use your fake power to scare people. This god is standing right here, waiting for you to come out. Didn't you want to kill me? I'll stand here without moving and stretch my neck. Let's see how you kill me. Aren't you very arrogant? Little worm, do you know the consequences of punching a god?" Yu Yang stepped forward. Akaji hurriedly stopped him. After hearing Sha Feng's words, he was also a little doubtful whether Yu Yang's true strength was enough to fight a god master alone. He knew that Yu Yang was very strong and had Ji Zun's willpower. His guardian beast was even a legendary divine beast. However, this kid was still too young. Even if he started cultivating since he was in his mother's womb, how could he be compared to a god master who had been famous for 10,000 years? Moreover, the southwestern divine lord, Sha Feng, had a quasi-deity artifact, spiraling Feng. Without the negative effects of a deity's domain weakening his strength, Sha Feng would definitely be able to defeat the southwestern divine lord. Without the negative influence of the divine territory, it was very likely that he would be killed in one move. Therefore, Akaji hoped that Yu Yang would be careful and not go out. The reason why Sha Feng escaped from the divine territory was to get rid of the negative influence and lure the enemy outside so that he could kill him with all his strength. It was too unwise to fight head-on when the enemy had the intention to kill him. Stepping on a god master is my first step to becoming a god. Therefore, if you want to fight, I'll fight. What's there to be afraid of? Yu Yang laughed out loud and strode out of the divine territory to meet Sha Feng. Akaji looked at Yu Yang in shock, as if he wanted to get to know this young man all over again. His level and strength were obviously far from Yu Yang's, but he had the ambition to soar into the sky. What kind of young hero was he? Could it be that all the rankers who had Ji Zun's willpower, no matter who, no matter what realm, and no matter what situation, were all fearless of their enemies? What kind of realm was Ji Zun's willpower? Akaji suddenly felt that he was very small. But the figure of Yu Yang in front of him had inexplicably become taller, to the point that Akaji had to look up to him. On the contrary, Sha Feng, who was standing opposite him, did not have such a feeling. His realm was too far away from Yu Yang's Ji Zun's willpower. Because he was ignorant, he was fearless. It was impossible for his heart to have the kind of fear that Akaji, who had a higher realm of thought and had heard of Ji Zun's willpower. Stupid! Sha Feng could not help but sneer when he heard this. To him, the pursuit of glory and the self-proclaimed hero's actions were equivalent to courting death. Even like now, knowing that it was a trap, but still stepping into it, that was not bravery, but hopeless stupidity. Of course, as a battle, the more stupid the enemy was, the happier Sha Feng was. It would be best if the whole world was a fool. As long as he was a smart person, it was enough. Looking at Yu Yang, who was slowly walking out of the god domain, the murderous intent in Sha Feng's heart erupted 1,000 times faster than lightning. Without waiting for Yu Yang to open his mouth to challenge him, Sha Feng, the high and mighty divine master, actually launched a sneak attack. A heavy punch landed on Yu Yang's chest, where the heart was. This was just the beginning. In 1,000th of a second, the heavy punch that hit the target's chest slanted upwards and hit Yu Yang's chin. At the moment when Yu Yang flew out like a shooting star, Sha Feng, who had gotten rid of the negative effects of the god domain and regained his normal strength, was so fast that he could chase after Yu Yang and kick him in the back of his heart. Yu Yang's entire body flew into the sky. He turned into stars. High up in the sky, Sha Feng had an evil smile on his face. He appeared even higher up in the sky. His figure was like a devil that had descended, covering the sky and the sun. He clenched his fists and punched Yu Yang's head. His momentum was like thunder, breaking mountains and shaking the earth. Rumble. As the meteor-like shadow crashed into the ground, the entire ground sank into a huge pit with a radius of at least 1,000 meters. The smoke and dust that rose did not dissipate for a long time. Chi-Chiu was anxious and waved his divine power to disperse the dust that filled the sky. Only then did the ferocious and terrifying earth crack that was like the mouth of an ancient prehistoric monster was revealed. Sha Feng leisurely floated down from the sky. He looked down at the black shadow that was stubbornly drilling out from the depths of the ground. He could not help but smile coldly and mockingly. Can't I kill him? As expected of Bing Li's successor. So what if I increase my divine power by 30%? Will I explode on the spot? If that's the case, this battle will be a little too boring. Without the camouflage of the divine realm, there is no way to create an illusion. With this brat's strength, he won't even be able to take one move. He is not an opponent of the same level. Killing him is no different from killing an ant. It is a pity that Akaji has the dragon swallowing and Taiyan's divine power to protect him. He cannot be killed. Otherwise, he will feel a greater sense of accomplishment. When the shadow crawled out of the ground and reached out a hand to grab the rock on the ground, preparing to climb up, Sha Feng descended and stepped on that hand. He smiled disdainfully and said, "Little worm, show me how arrogant you are now. Do you understand what is a god and what is a human? No matter how outstanding you are still a human. In front of a god, you are not even a fart." "Bastard, what are you saying?" The shadow bellowed angrily. "I want to say, it is time to send you on your way." Sha Feng did not find it strange that the other party's voice changed. Because he suffered such heavy injuries, plus humiliation and anger, it is impossible for his voice not to change. But what puzzled him was, How did that arrogant brat's voice change, so much like his own? Forget it, I will kill him as soon as possible. This kind of young human with extremely outstanding potential is the most annoying. It is better to kill him as soon as possible to avoid unnecessary trouble. When Sha Feng raised the spiral tooth in his hand and prepared to kill the shadow under his feet, he was shocked to discover the one under his feet is not that arrogant young man, but himself. How is this possible? How can I be stepping on myself? I am clearly the one who hit that brat, why is it me? But looking at that face that is distorted with anger and that hateful gaze, it is clearly me. You dare to hit me? The Sha Feng, who crawled out from the ground, gnashed his teeth in hatred. Impossible, you are fake, you are that brat's illusion, I am the real one, I am the real Southwest God Lord Sha Feng. Sha Feng saw his own bloody face and couldn't help but take a few steps back in fear. As he took a step back, his shoulder was suddenly pressed down by a hand. When Sha Feng turned around and used the spiral tooth to kill the enemy, he was shocked to find that there is another himself behind him, fiercely punching towards him. A heavy punch landed squarely on the stunned Sha Feng's face. Chapter 1172. Blood spurted out from his nose. Sha Feng reacted naturally and slashed back with his spiral fang, creating a deep wound on the chest of the Sha Feng behind him. The expression of that Sha Feng changed greatly. He covered the bloody wound on his chest and pointed at Sha Feng, scolding, "You fool, I am you. You injured me, but didn't you injure yourself? How can there be someone as cruel as you? You even want to kill yourself? No, you are you, I am me. You are definitely not me." Before Sha Feng could finish his words, blood spurted out from his chest. A deep wound also appeared on his body. Ha ha, I like this kind of self-mutilation. The Sha Feng, who crawled out from the ground, also had a wound on his chest. Blood flowed from it. He looked up to the sky and laughed maniacally. This is impossible, I am me, you are not me, not. Sha Feng only now realized that his sternum, heart, chin, and head were injured in many places, just like the injuries he suffered when he attacked the enemy. Could it be that the one who attacked him was really him? But there was clearly only one of him, so how could there be three? The other two, where did they come from? How could there be such a strange thing? Attacking a clone would also injure the main body. Was this possible? Since you want to mutilate yourself, then what are we waiting for? The two Sha Fengs raised the spiral fang in their hands and stabbed it into their bodies randomly. Sha Feng felt a wave of pain on his body. He hurriedly rushed forward and punched the two clones away, then snatched the spiral fang from their hands. There were a total of 3 spiral fangs. How could this be possible? There was only one spiral fang in the world. It was obtained from a divine master that Tai Yin killed when the 100 deities of the realm beyond Avalon attacked. It was a unique treasure, so how could there be 3 of them? But when placed in front of him, the 3 spiral fangs were exactly the same. There was no way to tell which one was the real one. After carefully examining it, Sha Feng could not tell which one was the real one, because all 3 spiral fangs had telepathy, as if they had been with him for 10,000 years. As soon as the 2 Sha Feng got up, they started to mutilate themselves, causing Sha Feng to feel inexplicable grief and indignation. He shouted, "Don't do this! Aren't you me? I will never harm myself. Don't try to deceive me. You are all fake. If we're fake, then why are your injuries the same as ours? Also, if we're fake, what about them?" The 2 Sha Feng laughed evilly, just like Sha Feng's usual habit. Sha Feng could not help but feel a chill in his heart. He turned around to look. He realized that behind the 2 Sha Fengs were pointing, there was a large group of him. There were more than 100 of them. All of them pounced on him and grabbed him tightly. There were more than 10 of them who were fighting to be the first to summon their grimoire, shouting, "We can't let him have the grimoire alone. This guy is trash. Why don't we let him take over? Because there were too many of them fighting for the grimoire, it actually started to change strangely. The grimoire itself started to distort slowly, becoming dark and gloomy. Finally, there was a loud bang. The grimoire's contract was automatically terminated, and it became a depraved, unowned grimoire. My grimoire! Sha Feng cried out in grief. He was extremely distressed. The injuries he suffered just now could not affect his willpower, because he believed that he was a divine master. No matter how serious the injuries he suffered, he would recover after a while. The self-mutilation action only annoyed him, but it was not fatal. However, this action of fighting for the grimoire due to too many clones, failing and finally destroying the grimoire made him feel despair. Without the grimoire, could he still be considered as a true god? Without his inherent skill, without his guardian beast, and without the grimoire world where he could escape safely, what was the point of living? It's best if you don't have it. It's only fair if everyone doesn't have it. Why should you be the only one who has the grimoire? Sha Feng clapped his hands and laughed. Yes, without the grimoire, we don't have to fight anymore. Another Sha Feng also expressed his agreement. Anyway, this is something that can only be obtained with the help of an ancient secret technique and Taiyan before he died. It doesn't even belong to us, it's fine if we don't have it. Another Sha Feng said vehemently. All of you shut up. Sha Feng was extremely distressed. That was a grimoire. Without it, he could only be a fake god. The 8 great gods of the outer mountains each had their own territory. If he lost his grimoire and reverted to a fake god, would there still be a place for him to speak in the future? What was going on with this group of strange doppelgangers? Could it be that there were really so many clones of him in his body? Even if there were, who released them? Could it be that arrogant brat? Sha Feng raised his head and looked around. He realized that Yu Yang was sitting on a rock with his legs crossed, leisurely swinging his legs and whistling from time to time. He didn't even look at them, his attitude was simply too arrogant. I'll kill you! Sha Feng vented all his anger on Yu Yang. Southwest God Sha Feng, you can die now. Yu Yang stretched out a finger, as if he was a judge, announcing Sha Feng's death sentence. What a joke! Sha Feng never thought that this arrogant brat could touch a single hair on his body. Although this brat's ability to cause trouble was not bad, his true strength was lacking. If not, he would have taken the opportunity to attack him earlier. Why would he need to talk now? Kill! Just as Sha Feng's heavy fist was about to land on Yu Yang's face, he suddenly realized that time and space seemed to have been stretched an inch away from the brat's nose. It was only an inch away, but it seemed as if it would never be able to cross the distance of thousands of years and thousands of kilometers. This was not the strangest thing. What made Sha Feng feel the most terrified was that the hundreds of him behind him all rushed forward. They did not wave their fists at this brat, but instead moved towards him together. Some held his hand, some dragged his leg, some hugged his body, all of them held him tightly. Heavens, why was this happening? Why were these clones treating him like this? Weren't they his clones? Sha Feng was almost driven mad by this cruel reality. What made him feel hopeless was that no matter how much he urged his divine power to shake off these doppelgangers, it was to no avail. This was because all of the doppelgangers were exactly the same as his own body. If one of them was injured, all of them would be injured, and if one of them was injured, all of them would be injured. There was no way he could break free from 100 clones' hold. Sha Feng could only watch as the arrogant brat in front of him slowly stood up from the rock with that infuriating yet helpless smile on his face. Then, he took out a treasure that looked like a jade seal and casually smashed it on top of his head like a chestnut. He was smashed. On the surface, Sha Feng, who did not seem to be injured, felt a pain in his soul as if it was being shattered. His divine energy was also showing signs of dissipating. The divine energy was like a mountain. Sha Feng now felt that it was extremely difficult for him to even breathe. There was a kind of sealing power that made one's soul tremble. Sha Feng started to feel afraid. Even Black Day or Deicide would not be able to withstand this kind of sealing power, let alone him now. Perhaps he would be completely destroyed by this irresistible sealing power before he could even be sealed in the shattered space. Sha Feng, who was extremely anxious, suddenly saw a female swordsman wearing a swordsman's battle armor jump out. She was wearing a battle armor made of God Destroyer's secret gold. In her hand there was a divine weapon that even he could not get. It was a divine sword with divine energy that could devour heaven and earth. This is the God Master you were talking about? He doesn't even have the will of a supreme martial artist. Can he still be considered a god? He really is a fake god. Forget it, let's kill a fake god first to warm up. That female swordsman jumped up. Billions of lightning, ice, and flames gathered towards the divine sword in her hand. Finally, it formed a huge dragon head and swallowed down. Just one strike. Sha Feng felt that his soul was cut by the power of the divine sword. Whether it was his body, soul, or even his divine power, they were all heavily injured and on the verge of collapse. Now, he regretted it. He still didn't understand why the battle had turned out this way, but he knew one thing, and that was that he was really going to die. You're still able to take a full-powered strike from me? As expected of a semi-divinity, an old monster who has lived for tens of thousands of years is really something else. The words of the female swordsman made Sha Feng have the urge to cry bitterly. When he was begging for mercy, he saw from the corner of his eyes that a golden sky dragon had formed in the hands of that arrogant boy. Wang Lung Yuan. These were the last words that Sha Feng heard in his consciousness. After the golden dragon raised its head to devour him, his consciousness dissipated. His body turned into powder and dissipated with the wind. All energy, divine power, and the knowledge imprints that remained in life. In the mouth of the golden dragon, they formed a small dragon ball. When the golden dragon returned to Yu Yang's body, the small dragon ball fell into Yu Yang's outstretched palm. This was the power of Wang Lung Yuan, and also the only proof that the Southwest Divine Master Sha Feng had existed in this world. Bang! A summoning grimoire exploded in the void, turning into an old, abandoned grimoire. It fell at Yu Yang's feet. As for the 100 clones of Sha Feng that had caught Sha Feng, they all disappeared without a trace. They disappeared like phantoms, as if they had never appeared in the first place. Akaji swallowed his saliva with difficulty. Back then, when Taiyan and Bingley attacked and killed the enemies, they didn't seem to have such an easy time, right? Who was this young man? This brat, is he even human? No matter what, Sha Feng was still a divine master. How could he just kill him like that? The worst thing was that he had turned into a dragon ball with a single slash of his sword. He had lived his entire life in vain. All the divine power and knowledge that he had cultivated in his entire life had probably been wasted on this young man. You should go back first. I still have to transform into Sha Feng to participate in the battle. With this Dragon Ball, I don't have to worry about being seen through for the time being. Yu Yang held the Dragon Ball and waved his hand. A phantom appeared on his body and disguised himself as Sha Feng. His appearance was exactly the same as the original Sha Feng. Even Akaji, who was beside him, couldn't see any flaws in his disguise. I forbid you to return home with this appearance. Also, be careful of Jiwuri. That guy isn't that easy to trick. Princess Sisai gave Yu Yang a punch. She seemed to be very unhappy that Yu Yang had used a phantom to disguise himself as Sha Feng. However, she knew that this was a method to sneak into the Western camp. Without saying anything, she turned around and went back with Little One Li's guidance. Should I get used to Sha Feng's divine power first, or should I dig out the ancient artifact's main body? Yu Yang was always a greedy person. He wanted to participate in the battle. However, he couldn't bear to part with the ancient artifact's main body. If it wasn't for the fact that he was worried that the ancient artifact would automatically teleport out of the outer mountains and return to the Silver Grimoire's boundless world to complete his mission, he would have dug it out long ago. Now, he could only look at the ancient artifact's main body in front of him, yet he couldn't do anything. Yu Yang felt as uncomfortable as a kitten scratching his heart. It was all Sha Feng's fault. Even his death was harmful. If he didn't take out the ancient artifact's main body, everything would be fine. Sha Feng, who was wronged to the point of almost being resurrected, couldn't blame the guy from another world. If he didn't take out the ancient artifact's main body, the guy from another world would probably have to search for it for a long time. Who knows, the ancient artifact might even be lost in the outer mountains forever. However, a dead man couldn't argue. The tragic Sha Feng could only die unjustly. In any case, he wasn't the first dead person that Yu Yang blamed. Chapter 1173. The main body of the ancient artifact could not be touched for the time being. Yu Yang looked at Akaji and his wife and felt that it would be better for him not to be a third wheel. He quickly moved 10 kilometers away to study the Dragon Ball in his hands, so that he would not be killed by Akaji and his wife's sweet nothings after their resurrection. Of course, Akaji and his wife did not do anything like what he had imagined. On the contrary, they quickly calmed down and personally went to look for Yu Yang, who was studying the Dragon Ball. It was not only Yu Yang who wanted to understand why Shan threw Akaji. Akaji also wanted to understand Yu Yang, this mysterious young fellow. Are you the successor of Taiyan and Bingli? Akaji had always guessed like this. How could he know that Yu Yang was a guy from another world? Maybe. Yu Yang did not deny it, nor did he confirm it. It was fine for others to misunderstand him. Sometimes one should not be too close to the truth, otherwise people would be disappointed. Now that Akaji suspected that Yu Yang was the successor of the two great gods, he naturally could not expose it. Anyway, Yu Yang was not too sure whether the mysterious existence in the Silver Grimoire's endless world was Taiyan or Bingli. Akaji's misunderstanding was also good for Yu Yang. If Yu Yang confessed the truth, then he would be an outsider. Don't expect Akaji to tell the real secret. As expected, Akaji was wild with joy. He nodded his head heavily and said, "Other than the successor of the two great gods, I can't imagine anyone else in this world who could be as outstanding as you." "Ha, you flatter me." Yu Yang tried his best to play dumb. But in his heart, he thought, "Don't try to flatter Taiyan and Bingli. If they really had a disciple, I'm afraid he would be trash. How could he be compared to a guy from another world like me?" Of course, he couldn't say this out loud. He could only keep it in his heart. He pretended to be the successor of Taiyan and Bingli. It was very beneficial. This benefit was something that even Yu Yang himself could not imagine. This was because Akaji had actually passed his dragon-swallowing spear to Yu Yang without a second word, causing Yu Yang, who was a treasure collector who would never let go of any treasure, to be at a loss as he mysteriously declined it. If Princess Sisai and the others were to see this, they would probably suspect that this Yu Yang was actually Jiwuri. What was the meaning of this? Wasn't the dragon swallowing Akaji's weapon? Why did he give it away without a second word? Yu Yang looked at himself. His body hadn't even trembled. Why did this Akaji kneel down? He didn't understand. He really didn't understand. However, Akaji insisted on passing the dragon-swallowing spear to Yu Yang. "I know you don't like it. After all, it's only a quasi-divine weapon. It's normal for you to not like it." However, the dragon swallowing contains Taiyan's divine power. If you want to inherit the will of the two great gods, Taiyan and Bingli, and defeat Black Day and Jiwuri, you must absorb this portion of Taiyan's divine power. Even if it's very weak, it's still a great help. I, Akagi, have lost my summoning grimoire and only have the power of a fake god. Furthermore, I don't even have 30% of it left. Even if I want to help Deicide and you right now, I'm already powerless. What I can do is only this. But this is your exclusive weapon. Yu Yang politely declined on the surface, but his hands were still holding onto the dragon-swallowing spear. My strength is already insufficient to unleash its full potential, and I can't be its master anymore. In order to let the dragon-swallowing unleash its full potential, I've decided to remove the spirit contract with it and let it regain its freedom. Akagi's eyes were filled with deep emotion. Just like a father sending off his daughter to get married, he gently caressed the head of the dragon-swallowing spear. His gentleness was as if he was caressing his precious daughter's hair. Despite his reluctance, Akagi still revealed a sincere smile and removed the spirit contract with the dragon-swallowing spear. In an instant, the dragon-swallowing spear shook violently and buzzed non-stop. It was full of spirituality and emitted thousands of rays of light. It had regained its freedom and was no longer Akagi's exclusive weapon. But it still enveloped Akagi and his wife with its brilliance. It didn't disperse for a long time. Its voice was both melancholic and sorrowful, just like a child who was about to go on an expedition to bid farewell to his parents, its voice earnest. Yu Yang was stunned when he saw it. A quasi-divine weapon like the dragon-swallowing spear actually had such spirituality? Divine weapons and holy-ranked weapons all had spirituality, especially divine weapons. They had an undying will and would choose their own masters. There was absolutely no external force that could change them. Other than divine weapons, holy-ranked weapons were the same. However, the spirituality of holy-ranked weapons was slightly lacking, so the conditions for choosing their masters were not as strict as those of divine weapons. As long as a weapon had great strength or great potential, it would be chosen as its master. Compared to real divine weapons and holy-ranked weapons, to a certain extent, the power of a quasi-divine weapon was already close to that of a divine weapon. However, in terms of spirituality, they were actually not as good as a real holy weapon. It was just like how a fake god had power close to that of a god. However, a fake god could never be compared to a true god. The difference between them was that they did not have a summoning grimoire and Ji Zun's will. A quasi-divine weapon's power was not weak. However, its spirituality was still lacking. Compared to a holy-ranked weapon, it was only superior in terms of power. It was just like how a fake god was stronger than an innate ranker with Ji Zun's will. However, no matter how strong a fake god was, it would never be able to comprehend Ji Zun's will. Right now, when Yu Yang discovered that this dragon-swallowing spear had actually exploded with such a strong spirituality after the spirit contract was removed, he couldn't help but be astonished. Then, he became wild with joy. If it continued to grow like this, maybe this dragon-swallowing spear could evolve into a real divine weapon by itself. What was the reason that allowed it to have such spirituality? Was it because of Taiyan's divine power? Or was it because of Akagi's meticulous nurturing for the past 10,000 years? Or was it because of Akagi's initiative to remove the spirit contract that resulted in a mutation? Yu Yang didn't understand. However, he knew that this was a good thing, a very good thing. Without a spirituality, no matter how strong it would still be trash. A real divine weapon was no different from a Ji Zun ranker. It also had an undying will, a unique consciousness and spirituality. This was a natural chasm. Only by crossing it would it be a real treasure. Otherwise, it would be trash. Looks like I did the right thing. It had been buried in my hands for 10,000 years. Today, when it regained its freedom, it gave birth to such a strong weapon spirit. I was really too selfish, I'm ashamed. When Akagi saw the dragon-swallowing spear shine brilliantly, he was deeply moved. At the same time, he mocked himself, feeling that he had wasted the divine weapon. Cough! No matter how thick Yu Yang's skin was, he was also a little ashamed. This had nothing to do with the divine weapon's freedom or the change of owner. The main credit was actually Akaji's 10,000 years of nurturing and great letting go. Strictly speaking, this had nothing to do with the guy from another world. Seeing that Akaji was still criticizing himself, Yu Yang couldn't help but blush a little. To be as great as Akaji, it was impossible for him. For example, if anyone wanted to touch his Tao Tai or Crescent Moon, it would be strange if he didn't fight them with his life, not to mention the Golden Beast and the Dragon Sister's humanoid divine weapons. To Yu Yang, letting go was something that he had never considered before. However, how to treat divine weapons and treasures well. This could be easily done. For the first time, Yu Yang bowed to Akaji and his wife. He took over the dragon swallowing, which was gradually calming down, and made a promise. If it's possible, I will turn it into a divine spear. I definitely won't let it lie idle and let the treasure be covered in dust. Even if it doesn't choose me as its owner, I will definitely find the best owner to match its new life. Don't worry. Actually, the dragon swallowing is not the divine weapon in my hands. When the 100 gods from the realm beyond heaven attacked, in order to increase our strength, Tai Yin and Bingli broke open the god-vanquishing secret realm and took out the 10 great divine weapons. The dragon swallowing was one of them. Akaji sighed softly. In the midst of it, I suffered many defeats. The dragon swallowing was taken by the fake gods many times and changed hands a few times. It was only when Tai Yin and Bingli killed all the enemies that the dragon swallowing returned to me. I am not qualified to be its owner. With the dragon swallowing in your hands, it will definitely shine brilliantly. I have never doubted your future. Alright, let's not talk about this sad topic anymore. Young man, maybe you still don't know what had happened in the past. Before I hide my identity, I will tell you everything that happened in the past. Right now, you are the only one who can help us slay God. Yu Yang was overjoyed when he heard this. What he wanted was this information. If it wasn't for Akaji taking the initiative to say it, even if he used all the methods in the world, it would be difficult to find out even 1/10,000th of the truth. Among the 8 great gods, which one of them would tell the truth? Not to mention the western camp on Black Day's side, the southern god Lord Tensho was the greatest spy. The northeastern god Lord Qin Yun was aloof from worldly affairs and avoided people. Only the eastern god Lord Deicide was left to fight alone. No one could trust him. Naturally, he would not divulge the secret. In the end, only the southeastern god Lord Akaji could say it. Akaji would keep everything that happened in the past a secret. He would tell everything in detail. There were some things that even the western camp on Black Day's side didn't know. Tai Yin had entrusted it to Akaji. He didn't leave anything out and told Yu Yang one by one. In the process of listening, Yu Yang didn't miss the opportunity to raise some doubts, hoping to quickly sort out the most complete information. Is there a secret passage in the Divine Destruction secret realm that connects to the sky beyond sky, the mountain beyond mountain, and the tower beyond tower? Yu Yang remembered this important point and hurriedly asked. Akaji gave an affirmative answer, but the result made Yu Yang a little depressed. So it is inside the Divine Destruction secret realm. However, Tai Yin and Bingli used their lives as the price to seal the passage. That year, the 100 gods were defeated. They did not go to the tower beyond tower and join forces to release the evil deities Wei Guang that had been sealed there since ancient times. You may not know this, but that Wei Guang is a terrifying evil deity known as the King of Gods. If it wasn't for the ancient seal, from the tower beyond tower to the mountain beyond mountain, or even the sky beyond sky, it would have been destroyed by his hands. In order to reseal Wei Guang, Tai Yin and Bingli, you are the successor of the 2 great gods, Tai Yin and Bingli. Who knows, you might be able to enter through the great god's seal. Akaji gave Yu Yang a glimmer of hope at the end. I'll try. Yu Yang knew that he was not a successor, but a fake. However, he could only try his luck now. Who knows, maybe the two great gods, Taiyin and Bingli, were worried about not having a successor. Or maybe, that mysterious existence was one of them. If that was the case, then things would be simple. Yu Yang decided to go back and explore the Divine Destruction's secret realm and the space inside it after the battle. Treasures aside, the connection to the tower beyond tower, the mountain beyond mountain, and the sky beyond sky was a first-class benefit. With this secret passage, wouldn't he be able to roam freely in the Human Valley, Earth Valley, and Heaven Valley? As for that evil deity's Wei Guang, there was still half a year's time. Yu Yang did not have the time to care about him. After killing Black Day and Ji Wuri, he would think of a way to return to the Human Valley. As for Heaven Valley, if the 100 gods were all dead, he would not need to spend too much time to successfully pass. Of course, that plan was placed last. For thousands of years, I had always wanted to retire, but I could not bear to see Deicide handle the whole situation alone, so I clenched my teeth and persevered. Now that my god power is greatly damaged and I have lost my grimoire, I, Akagi, am already powerless. I can only live in seclusion with my lover and become a free traveler in the world. Not only did Akagi give the dragon swallowing to Yu Yang, he also took out the remaining 30% of his god power and condensed it into a ball of god power, which he gave to Yu Yang. At first, Yu Yang did not accept it, but Akagi laughed loudly. I will not compete with the gods. 10% of my god power is enough for me to roam the world. You do not need to worry. Moreover, my god power is all cultivated, not external power. It is not like I cannot recover it forever. It is just that the recovery time is extremely long. It will take me thousands of years to fully recover. He stretched out his hand and patted Yu Yang's shoulder heavily, as if he intended to pass the burden to this junior, Yu Yang. But he himself hugged his lover and soared into the sky, turning into a ray of divine light, disappearing without a trace. If not for the dragon swallowing in his left hand and the ball of god power in his right hand, Yu Yang would not dare to believe that this fellow Akagi was such a generous traveler. This fellow is really free and unfettered. It's a pity that I caught a strong man for him. Now I have no choice but to risk my life. Yu Yang sighed now. He felt that the dragon swallowing spear and the ball of god power were not easy to get. He originally planned to pick them up stealthily, but now he reckoned that it would not be possible. If he watched helplessly as Deicide was killed by Black Day, no matter what, he would be letting down Akagi's trust. Forget it, no matter what, there were treasures to get, he would just treat it as an NPC quest. Thinking of this, Yu Yang's mood improved again. A quasi-divine equipment with super-high spirituality, a future divine equipment, was obtained just like that. Could it be that today's luck had exploded together with the universe? Yu Yang, who originally wanted to pretend to be Sha Feng and act mysteriously, couldn't care less anymore. He hurriedly returned to his original form and rushed back to the grimoire world to report the good news to everyone. Without waiting for Princess Sisai and the others to speak, he immediately raised the dragon swallowing. Look, I've struck it rich, I got another treasure. It can't be? You killed Akagi too? Just for this spear? Princess Sisai seriously doubted Yu Yang's character. Yu Yang had never thought that he would have such an image in Tigress's heart. I'll give you a chance to explain. Yu understood her little third brother the most. If she really killed Akagi, this brat probably wouldn't come back immediately. He would definitely do something to divert everyone's attention. However, the dragon swallowing was a free divine weapon, it didn't have a master's contract. It didn't seem like a gift, so it was hard not to suspect a certain person's character and actions, who loved to kill people and steal their treasures. In the end, the great sister decided to give her brother a chance to explain. Yu Yang was extremely grateful. Sister was still the best. Her sister's protection was like a treasure, but her sister's protection was like grass. But when he told her the truth, even Yu was doubtful. That's not possible, right? Is Akaji really that great? He's not related to you at all, it's hard for me to imagine. Xiao-san, you really didn't kill him? Even his sister didn't believe him. This was already too hard to live. The guy from another world dejectedly squatted at the corner of the room and drew circles. Chapter 1174. Actually, everyone still believed in Yu Yang, not to mention Yu, who supported her brother the most. She just deliberately doubted him and hid him a little to prevent him from getting too carried away. Seeing his embarrassed look, even Princess Sisai was amused. Shu Huai laughed. The dragon-swallowing spear had spirituality. If there was a chance in the future, it was not impossible for it to evolve into a divine weapon. Yu Yang, who already had the Tao Tai, Crescent Moon and the Dragon Lady's humanoid divine weapon in his hands, generously offered it up. He wanted to see who wanted it the most. Then, through the divine weapon's approval, he could contract this devouring dragon. I already have the Dawn Angel. Yu smiled and waved her hand. Of course, she knew the advantage of having a divine weapon, but the dragon swallowing was not suitable for her. The sword is the way of the king. This was Princess Sisai's opinion. Close combat, that kind of barbaric and bloodthirsty fighting and killing, is not this queen's choice. The Impatiens liked to bombard people with sky thunder. She did not care about close combat at all. Other than true gods, who could be 100% sure that they could survive under her sky punishment thunder. Although the Southern Demon King, who was hugging the Jade Pipa, was a fanatical treasure collector like Yu Yang, this time she resisted the desire to collect it. After all, this dragon-swallowing spear could not be casually put on a shelf. It was best to take it out for battle. Especially in the current tense situation of the Divine War, it would be better to have more advantages. Sickly Beauty rarely fought, and so did Xiaonu. They did not consider it. Fallen Beauty had the Death Aurora and Nirvana Sunflower. Inan had the Spirit Mirror. Lu Yi also had the New Moon Necklace. She did not need the dragon swallowing. It was just that Lu Ye's current strength was not enough to display the true power of the New Moon Necklace. Moreover, she was not good at using the spear. Her fighting style was the combination of teleportation and soul purification with the perforate deer. Xia Yi and Aquamarine were weaker, but they also had the Heavenly Dragon Dagger and the Ocean Emperor Halberd. Before Yu Yang could look at them, they shook their heads and refused, indicating that it was not necessary. Leader Raging Flames pretended not to see it. She would only turn into her twin sister form at night and secretly serve a certain wolf with Bai Lu. Normally, she was a female giant and was much taller than Ah-Man at her initial stage. She couldn't use any normal weapons. Even if she held the Black Hell King's cloud-collapsing thunderhammer in her hands, it was as comical as a normal person holding a chopstick. It didn't fit at all. If she really needed a weapon, she might as well use the enormous 9-meter-long, 100-ton sky rod that Yu Yang made with the god-destroying secret gold. When he first created this gigantic weapon, Yu Yang had even planned to call it the Golden Cudgel. But on second thought, what if he were to go to the territory of the Eastern Immortal Tribe in the future and met a monkey with a furry face and a thunderous mouth? What if he was caught by that monkey brother and sued him for the patent? It wasn't that he couldn't copy it, but he couldn't be too arrogant. So he temporarily changed the name to Sky Rod instead of Golden Cudgel. Anyway, this rod couldn't be as big or small as the real thing, and it couldn't be turned into an embroidery needle to be clipped to one's ear. After it was created, it would be fixed and could no longer be changed. Besides, it wasn't too bad to call it the Sky Rod. A certain super god of consciousness wrote a series of books about heroes. Among them, there was a gentle knife, a stunning spear, and a rod to the sky. It was extremely awesome. As the saying goes, one strong person can defeat 10 people. With the strength of leader raging flames, holding the 100-ton sky rod, she smashed the rod down. Even if it wasn't as powerful as the monkey brother, the effect wasn't too different. The dragon-swallowing spear was not suitable for leader raging flames. Bing Air picked it up and twirled it around. Just when everyone thought that this little girl was going to take it, she turned her hand and handed it to Drunken Cat, who was holding Miss Pandanyonyo. "Didn't you learn spear combat skills from my brother recently?" Drunken Cat was stunned. "I have the energy absorption bracelet and the extreme speed semi-divine artifact ring, so I don't need the dragon swallowing. Moreover, my combat skills are mainly leg technique. I practiced spear techniques before just to familiarize myself with and break technique." Yu Bing waved her hand repeatedly. She had always strictly followed Yu Yang's requirements and plans to practice, and the same was true for her fighting style. Not to mention that the dragon swallowing was a quasi-divine artifact. Even if it was a high-grade divine artifact, without Yu Yang's consent, she would never open her mouth to ask for it. Actually, among us, no one is more suitable to use the dragon-swallowing spear than you. Princess Sisai decided with one sentence. Although the spear you used to fight was not bad, it was not as good as the dragon-swallowing. If it can evolve into a divine artifact, then you don't have to bother looking for spear-type divine artifacts in the future. Even if there is dragon swallowing, I'm afraid I can't help much now. Drunken Cat was a little ashamed. But as soon as she sensed Yu Yang's words in her mind, "So you have to work harder during the dual cultivation," she immediately blushed and hurriedly glared at him, deeply afraid that Princess Sisai and the others would spy on her. Because they were connected by the soul ribbon, even if they didn't deliberately, they could easily achieve telepathy. Especially if a certain wolf had any bad thought. It was easy for everyone to sense it. Luckily, with Bing Air, Bao Air and Sky Disaster around, Yu Yang was able to pretend to be a gentleman. His thoughts were very pure, and he didn't have any crooked thoughts, allowing Drunken Cat to escape a calamity. Next was communication and contract. Although Drunken Cat wasn't as strong as Akagi, her potential was far greater than Akagi's. As the descendant of the Yi clan, Drunken Cat was a descendant that His Majesty valued. She was personally appointed to be Yu Yang's bride. It could be seen how outstanding she was. She had great potential, a grimoire that had evolved to platinum ranked, a little panda girl, Nyonyo, who would at least be a holy beast or even a divine beast in the future. At the same time, under Yu Yang's guidance, she had comprehended Ji Zun's will and peeped into the real divine realm several times. Such a master was naturally not something that the dragon swallowing, a divine weapon that had just gained sentience, could reject. Thousands of lights flashed, and the entire grimoire world fell into a brilliant sea of light. With Yu Yang's help, the Taiyan divine power contained in the dragon swallowing. It didn't dissipate because of the change of master. On the contrary, it allowed Yu Yang to be sealed in the spear better, closely connected to the 3 ancient runic circles: stop, explode, and guidance. As long as Drunken Cat entered battle mode, she could activate this Taiyan divine power at will to kill the enemy. What made Drunken Cat the happiest was that her beast Iris could be upgraded again. Iris was originally a heaven-ranked level 3 flaming godly eagle. Yu Yang had used the Earth Guiyin fire to upgrade it to the peak of heaven-ranked level 4, infinitely close to heaven-ranked level 5. After experiencing dozens of battles, it had long been promoted to heaven-ranked level 5. But without enough intelligence, ordinary war beasts could only stay at heaven-ranked level 5 for the rest of their lives. Of course, there were a few war beasts that used special methods to reach higher levels, such as Ji Wuri's heaven-ranked level 8 Black Sun war beast. But the success rate of this method wasn't high. It was extremely easy to cause war beasts that couldn't withstand it to explode, become deformed, or suffer some kind of irreversible failure. As for Iris, Drunken Cat didn't have high hopes for it to grow to a higher level. Her main goal was to nurture the little panda girl, Nyonyo. Not every war beast had the opportunity to enter the gate of rebirth like the Reaper Mantis sister, and not every war beast that entered the gate of rebirth would definitely have better growth. Even though Yu Yang had many divine bodies, divine blood, and various other treasures, their attributes weren't suitable, and they couldn't produce the desired effect. This was especially true for the flaming godly eagle that had fused with the earth Gui-in fire. Until the appearance of Taiyan's divine power, Yu Yang had finally found a suitable divine power to remodel the flaming godly eagle Iris's body. Princess Qian Qian understood very well what had to happen in this process. The cooperation of husband and wife, dual cultivation, was an unavoidable foundation. Hence, she had specially asked Binger to train with her so that the curious little girl wouldn't disturb her brother's good time. Fallen flowers pulled Bao air away, while the impatiens grabbed sky disaster. The remaining southern demon king and the others smiled and made faces at the blushing drunken cat, then left one after another. Yu also wanted to do it, but sickly beauty pulled her back. Anyone could leave now, but the only one who could wake Yu Yang up and calm him down when he lost control of his rationality couldn't leave. Shui Wuxiao wasn't here. Other than Yu, no one else could wake up Yu Yang from his deep sleep, nor could they use the power of water to neutralize his extreme yang. There was no other way. Who asked her to have such a brother? Yu could only turn around, not looking at the process. Actually, with the spiritual connection, it didn't matter whether she saw it or not, and she could feel it. She turned around and didn't look. It was just that she couldn't let her big sister's face go. Sickly beauty held Yu's hand gently. She knew how important Yu was. Every time Yu Yang did something special, Yu would always support and help her. Because of this, she understood the sacrifice Yu had made for him. In order to support him, as his big sister, she could be said to have given up everything. If it wasn't for her help, how could he have improved so quickly? How could he have reached such an unbelievable realm today? Drunken Cat couldn't care less about her shyness, and cooperated with him in the husband and wife dual cultivation. When their minds were as one, then they summoned the flaming godly eagle, Iris. The tranquil purple-blue flame burned silently. The flaming godly eagle soared into the sky and dived down from the sky, aiming at the dragon's swallowing spear that Yu Yang and Drunken Cat raised together. Taiyan's divine power gushed out like a volcano eruption. It hit the flaming godly eagle. If it wasn't for the protection of Yu Yang's supreme will, the flaming godly eagle would have been annihilated by Taiyan's divine power in a few seconds, leaving only a burning ball of earth Gui-in fire. The purple-blue iris let out a painful wail. Just as its will and body were about to collapse, Yu Yang quickly threw a trace of nirvana flame into its soul, allowing it to fuse with the trace of nirvana's power. Then, a pillar of nirvana flame rose from the ground, burning and regenerating its body. With a trace of nirvana flame, the soul of the flaming godly eagle, Iris, was not extinguished under the pressure of Taiyan's divine power. It was shaky, but not in danger of being annihilated. His body, which had a wingspan of more than 20 meters, exploded under the power of the supreme flame divine power. Before the earth Gui-in fire could fully erupt, it was enveloped by the supreme nirvana flame. Together with a part of the supreme flame divine power, it perfectly fused together and formed a new Tai Gui-in fire that had never existed before. The already destroyed body was also reborn and reconstructed in the nirvana flame pillar. The flaming wings became light and agile. They became longer and flashed endlessly. The original eagle head was reborn in the nirvana flame, forming the head of a woman that looked like a human head with an eagle crown. The huge body also gradually seemed to have the intention of transforming into a human body. Countless flaming feathers stopped in the sky and extended, forming 4 pairs of flaming wings. Other than the eagle's feet, Even its hands were similar to a human's arms, except that its nails were extremely long and sharp like hooks. Holy beast? My Iris will also become a holy beast one day? Drunken Cat couldn't help but have a slight fluctuation in her heart. She was too surprised. Ah! However, Yu Yang was fully focused and lost her cooperation. He immediately suffered a mental backlash and felt a splitting headache. Quickly stop thinking and cooperate. Seeing the accident, Yu forgot about everything and turned around. She hugged Yu Yang and immersed herself in his sea of consciousness to share his pain. She also sent over the water energy that made him feel the calmest and most peaceful. In an instant, Yu Yang calmed down and returned to his original focused state of dual cultivation. He fixed the flaming celestial eagle iris's current best state after rebirth and reconstruction. When everything was done, Yu Yang couldn't take it anymore and fell asleep in Yu's arms. There was nothing more tiring than rebirth and reconstruction of a new life. If he could choose to replace it, Yu Yang would rather fight against 3 Sha Fengs at the same time than to use Nirvana's flame to rebirth a new life. The stronger the life that needed to be modified, the higher the goal of the modification, and the more effort it would take. Moreover, this was for Drunken Cat's Iris, not for Aman, not for his own beast, and not for a guardian beast that would never die even if it failed. The reason why Yu Yang clenched his teeth and persevered was because he hoped that Drunken Cat would have a strong support before Miss Panda Nyonyo grew up, so that she wouldn't always feel like a burden. One must know that other than Yu Bing, Drunken Cat should be the most hard-working one in training. She was even more hard-working than the cultivation maniac Princess Sisai. She didn't want to be a burden to Yu Yang, so she had been training with all her might. However, no matter how hard or tiring training was, it still needed time. It was impossible to reach the sky in one step. Yu Yang saw it and felt pain in his heart. He didn't want to persuade her, because he understood what she wanted. Therefore, with such an opportunity today, no matter how hard or tiring it was, he would help her get her Iris. Holy Beast was not possible for now. Right now, Iris's transformation had just begun. It needed more learning and growth. Just like Fatty High's wind breath seabird, it was so smart and had been nurtured for so long, but it still couldn't completely transform into a human and become a holy beast. Becoming a holy beast was definitely not an easy process. It was no less than a new life for a beast. Flaming celestial eagle Iris couldn't maintain its human form for a long time. As soon as the connection between its master's mind was loosened, it immediately returned to its eagle form. It spread its wings and flew high. It flew in the sky and circled excitedly, one round after another, not stopping for a long time. Drunken Cat, who was still sitting on Yu Yang's lap and was also sweating profusely, thanked Yu with a little embarrassment and boundless gratitude. "Sister Yu, it's all thanks to you." Yu smiled. She took the handkerchief from Sickly Beauty and wiped the sweat off Drunken Cat's face. "It's all right. As long as you guys are fine, I can rest assured." Drunken Cat was excited. She opened her arms and hugged both Yu and Sickly Beauty, who were separated by Yu Yang. She couldn't say a word anymore. Her tears fell like pearls from a broken necklace. Yu Yang, who was in a deep sleep, had already entered the dream realm. He immediately looked for Koki no Koki and asked her about the Dragon Ball. "It's like this. I used Wang Lung Yuan to attack. In the end, not only did Sha Feng die, his divine power and knowledge were also refined into a Dragon Ball. Previously, Wang Lung Yuan refined the Hell Tiger Divine Sword for Tigress. Then, he refined millions of dragon scales from the god-vanquishing secret realm to create Yinglong. What kind of secret power did Wang Lung Yuan's sword contain? Why did it far exceed my expectations? I'm getting more and more confused. I know you must know the real secret. Tell me quickly." You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.